Welcome everybody. I'm Claire Ponton, Mayor of Mid Coast. Members of the public are able to attend the meeting in person or view the meeting live through a web link on Council's website. The meeting is being recorded and a copy of this recording will be placed on Council's website as soon as practical after the meeting. The meeting must not be recorded, distributed or circulated by others without the prior written consent of Council in accordance with the Council's Code of Meeting Practice. I ask you to stand for the Acknowledgement of Country. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Gatung-speaking people, and pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who now reside in the Mid Coast Council area. I extend my respect to elders past and present and to all future cultural knowledge holders. Councillors could remain standing. We, the councillors of Mid Coast Council, will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interests of the Mid Coast community and will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in us under the Local Government Act 1993 to the best of our abilities and judgment. The first item we need to address is 6.2, which is attendance via audio link. In accordance with clause 5.22 of Council's Code of Meeting Practice, Councillor Thomas O'Keefe has requested approval to take part in the meeting via AV link, and I'll move that Councillor O'Keefe be able to take part in today's meeting via AV. A seconder, please. Councillor Miller, all in favour? Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I'll also move that the minutes of the 22nd June 2026 ordinary meeting, copies of which were distributed to councillors, be taken as read and confirmed as a true record of proceedings. Seconder, please. Councillor Wilson, all in favour? Thank you. Thanks, everybody. We had an open forum this morning. There were two speakers. Mr. Tony Lewis from Manning Valley Hockey Association spoke on the club's major events and the support received from Council. Mr. Michael Groth from Tea Gardens Country Club Fishing Club requested funds to upgrade the Tea Gardens fish cleaning facilities. We then had a public forum. There were 6 speakers. The first 3 spoke against the recommendation for item 17.2, which was the quarry at Shallow Bay Road, Shallow Bay. Those people were Mr. Jamin Foster, Mr. Michael Hanson, Dr. Amanda Wood, and we had 3 speakers speaking in favour of the recommendation for the same item, the quarry at Shallow Bay. They were James Kingston, Craig Anderson and Julie Brady. We have a petition, moving to item 10. It's been received from Norman Hunt on behalf of Wallaby Point Action Group regarding the condition of Saltwater Road. And I need, before we can do any business, need to call for any disclosures of conflicts of interest. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2 to declare and I have filled in the paperwork. So item 17.2, which is the Shallow Bay Road quarry, I have a non-pecuniary, less than significant conflict on the basis that one of the speakers at the forum this morning has assisted with one of my electoral campaigns. I'll be staying in the room and taking part in the debate. The other conflict is 17.7, which is the development determinations. That will be a pecuniary conflict, so I will leave the room on the basis my business is a tenant in a property that has 2 applications. Those applications have been approved by staff and they're just for noting in the report, but to err on the side of safety, I will leave the room.
Thank you. And I'm going to declare that I have a conflict of interest for the same item, 17.2, the quarry, for the same reason. One of the speakers assisted me in a council election and I will stay in the room for that. And Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have the same non-pecuniary, less than significant conflict and I'll be staying in the room.
Thank you. All right. Another one, sorry. Councillor Mackenzie.
Non-pecuniary, less than significant interest matters before the court. I met one of the participants in one of the cases beforehand and another participant in 3 of the other cases is his wife.
Councillor Beasley.
Firstly, just to say that I'll remain seated for all of the council meeting for 2 reasons. The change of Code of Meeting Practice firstly doesn't include a clause that asks for councillors to stand, and second, I do have a congenital back problem which has just got worse, and standing for any length of time in one spot is painful. On to the conflict of interest. It is in regard to item 20.7. It's a non-pecuniary less than significant interest, and I was on the same ticket as this person who is listed in there at the last election and will remain in the meeting.
No more? Okay, and thank you for raising the reason for staying seated, Councillor Beasley. Now, for people in the gallery, we are going to amend the order of business, but to bring forward the quarry, because we believe most people are here to do that, but we still have to do the notices of motions first. So we have 2 of those and some questions, but then we will change the order of business. So you don't have to wait much longer than that. So I need to advise that regarding item 19, questions with notice, Councillor Beasley has 1 question on notice, and it was relating to development contribution plans, and the response is published in the business paper. And then we need to do 2 notices of motion. The first has been submitted by Councillor Mackenzie. Would you like to move your motion, Councillor Mackenzie?
Yes, I move that council remove all planned boxes from town centres to increase parking throughout the LGA.
Thank you. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Graham. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Mackenzie?
Yes, please. I move the motion after many requests from members of the public. It also seems to flow with the idea of parking in a town centre, that we have as much as we possibly can. We live in a wonderful district with huge arrays of plants, not 5 minutes out of every town centre. To have concrete plant boxes in the middle of the town centre seems, whilst a good thought, somewhat misguided to me and to many members of the public. So some of the boxes, as I have a list here, we have actually 7 of them. Taree is the town that's affected here, and where I am, my comments. We have obstruction to footpath access and loading zones. We have some planter boxes that are simply smack dab in the middle of marked car parking spaces. We have areas that could be better used for motor vehicle parking, and in the motor vehicle parking, motorcycles in particular, there's a lot of the areas that could be converted. We also have boxes that are adjacent to disability parking spots, which makes it difficult to see around, difficult to manage. I think it would be of huge advantage to the greater public if we return these areas to car parking spaces. I also think that it's an area where we could save on maintenance costs. I don't see the point to the planter boxes on the whole. Anyway, that's the thrust of my motion. We would be gaining a cumulative 50 square metres of parking. As I've said, the disability access is improved, footpath obstruction is removed, and motorcycle parking areas would also be very, very handy. So we also have, interesting to note, planter boxes that are only metres away from already well-grown in-ground garden beds on the corner of Manning and Albert Streets. So that's my motion. I hope it gets support. I hope we can increase parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Did the seconder wish to speak to it?
Yeah, okay. Being a libertarian, obviously I'd like to see public money spent wisely. So public car parks is used to provide parking, basically. Planter boxes reduce the number of available spaces. make it harder to use, and limiting access to what's a publicly funded asset, essentially. The planter boxes cost money to install and maintain. I believe the ratepayers' funds should be directed to essential services. I think removing them will improve economic activity. I think it increase customer access to local businesses, increasing their profitability. So I'm happy to support this motion.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against? Councillor Miller?
Could I ask a question, please, Mayor, of Councillor Mackenzie? It was a question that a member of the public asked me yesterday at a public event. Councillor Mackenzie, the motion says all plant boxes from town centres. So this person from Foster said, what's he got against the plant boxes in Tuncurry and why does he want them removed? Because that's going to have zero impact on parking. So if you could help that member of the public with that question.
It's interesting. I'm not sure that the wording here is exactly as I put it in the beginning. The thrust of this motion is basically directed at Taree, but I'm happy to extend it if there's any benefit for parking in any other areas. If there's no benefit for parking in other areas, then I'm happy for the planter boxes to be left there.
Further speakers? Councillor Wilson?
Just a couple of questions before I talk to it. A question to the acting general manager. It's with regards to those planter boxes. Did we consult with the retailers before we put them in?
Councillor Wilson, to answer your question, there's been a lot of consultation, both in a Taree context and a Tuncurry context. The history of Taree dates back to my former role, where Parramatta City Council was doing renovations to Church Street for light rail, and they donated free of charge not only the planter boxes, but also a range of other, street furniture for Manning Street and Taree. There was consultation with the business chamber, there were consultation with the businesses prior to that being installed. It cost us essentially nothing because it was paid for by Parramatta City Council as an act of goodwill. In relation to the planter boxes in Tuncurry, there was an economic development project, quite an extensive economic development project there that was facilitated by an external facilitator, very well-known external facilitator, where all the businesses were involved in that and actually participated with not only man-hour but also provision of materials to make Tuncurry happen. So there's been extensive consultation with businesses historically in both regards.
Okay, they're my questions.
Thank you. Councillor Tickle?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. One further question through the acting general manager. What's the level of complaint, or has there been any level of complaint recorded in relation to loss of parking, in particularly Manning Street, Taree?
Councillor Siegel, I'm not personally aware of any direct complaints being written to council. There may be discussions in community, social media and the like, but I'm not aware of any official or formal complaint in relation to car parking and the planter boxes taking up car parking.
A further question, if I could, Mayor. This one to the mover. Just for clarification, your motion refers to the LGA, but do I understand you're really looking at planter boxes that are an impediment to planning, actually taking up parking spaces? Because Gloucester has planter boxes, Tuncurry has planter boxes, so you're wholly and solely referring to loss of parking. Is that that situation? Thank you.
Councillor Miller?
Just a very quick question, sort of follows up on Councillor Tickle's one to Councillor Mackenzie. What do you have against the planter boxes in Wingham and how would removing those increase parking?
I think I was just clear in stating that the intent of the motion was to increase parking.
Sorry, just a follow-up question. The motion says, I move that council remove all plant boxes from town centres to increase parking. So it's town centres plural and it says all plant boxes. So I'm confused about the motion.
As I've said, I'm not convinced that the actual wording of the motion was exactly what I put in the first place, but that's...
Then I have another clarifying question. You've moved the motion. Are you saying this isn't the motion you wanted to move in moving the motion? I'm confused.
I'm not going to go around in circles anymore, as I just stated. I'm not sure that it's exactly the wording that I put in the first place. Unfortunately, I failed to pick up on it before the meeting came to be.
Any further speakers or questions? Councillor Turnbull?
Okay. These are normally questions I would ask in a pre-meeting briefing that we are no longer allowed to have. So I'm going to ask the dumb questions out loud, and I'm not even sure who I'm asking these to. But when I saw these, I thought, am I even able to vote on this because it seems more operational than strategic? And is it a problem, and how big of a problem is it? Where's the research, the data, the evidence, what community engagement's been done? How long have they been there for? Have they been an issue for that period of time? I mean, I've been to Tari obviously a few times and it's been quite busy, but I've not had a problem finding a park, even if it is, you know, a street or two away. And what's the cost and impact of moving them? Like, obviously there'll be a fee. Where are they going to go? Like, there seems to be a lot more information that's needed prior to a decision being made. So I'm not sure if they're rhetorical questions or if they're questions that anyone can answer, but that kind of came up for me when I saw this one.
Councillor Turnbull, you can make a decision based on the notice of motion put forward by Councillor Mackenzie. I have looked that up. That is the exact wording that was submitted. You can make that decision. The council can vote on the notice of motion and can decide either way. In terms of cost to remove, there will be a cost to remove. Would we reuse them elsewhere? That remains to be seen. We've got existing streetscapes across the mid-coast that have planter boxes. Obviously, work had been done in Taree to talk to businesses about the specific style, type, location of these planter boxes, how they're painted, how they're decorated, so on and so forth. If they were to be reused, that conversation would have to happen in whatever locality they were supposed to be reused in. That again is something that has not been considered through the motion in and of itself. So it could all happen. It's a matter for council, ultimately.
Yeah, okay.
If I could just talk to it now. Councillors, the motion in front of us is to move that the council remove all planter boxes from town centres. I understand Councillor Mackenzie has tried to clarify it, saying it's just Taree, but that's not the motion in front of us. So bear that in mind. I think this is a bit of a doozy. 4 planter boxes in Manning Street currently occupying car spaces. In the CBD, there's roughly 3,200 car park spots around Taree. Those 4 represent 0.125% increase in capacity. At the purchased at the loss of trees and the greenery that breaks up the car monotony. No background paper, no audit of which boxes actually cost. What boxes actually cost us is similar to Councillor Turnbull's questions. No consultation with traders or community, and no explanation why the shorter time limits and proper enforcement would not free up more spots than just removing 4 planter boxes. They're the only living things on the street other than people and an odd dog. If the real goal is make more available parking, bring a motion that shortens time restrictions and put more rangers on the beat. Removing trees to gain 4 spaces is not a parking strategy. It is a gesture that costs the town more than it delivers.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. My previous answer question, so I'll speak briefly against it, similar to Councillor Wilson's line. And I think Councillor Turnbull raised some excellent points again about the cost of moving it. So I know that the acting general manager said it mattered where you move them to, but the motion is remove all plant boxes from town centres to increase parking. So it has to be somewhere outside of a town centre or outside of the LGA that you would do it. I can't back a motion that says that council needs to go around and remove all plant boxes from all town centres because I don't know the cost of that. We have talked about the number of town centres that have plant boxes. That's an open-ended work order to say council has to go around all town centres and remove all plant boxes, so I'm not able to support this motion.
Thank you. Any further speakers, or can I put the motion? Councillor Beasley. Councillor Beasley wants to speak.
I'd like to propose an alternate motion.
Moving an amendment.
I am indeed. And I'd like the wording to be essentially what is in Councillor Mackenzie's motion. However, I would like it to read that council remove all plant boxes which inhibit parking from town centres in the Mid-Coast Council area.
Okay, that doesn't have to be an amendment if the mover and seconder agree to that change. Are you happy to accept that change, And the seconder? Yes, okay, done. Any further speakers on the motion?
On the amendment?
No, it doesn't have to be an amendment if the mover and seconder
Oh.
accept the change. It's only if we move to a debate. So those words are now changed.
So as it wasn't an amendment and I have spoken to the motion, the motion is now changed. I'm unsure if I'm able to speak again. So can I phrase it as a question?
You could do either.
Okay, thank you. I'll go with the question for now. My question to Councillor Beasley or the mover or the seconder is the same, as an open-ended work order. If we're now saying remove all plant boxes from town centres that impinge on parking or worse to that effect, how many is that and what's the cost of that? Is it just Taree? Is it just Manning Street? Are there other places in the LGA where there are plant boxes impinging on parking? I don't want to do an open-ended work order here.
That's a very good question, Councillor Miller. I can't answer that specifically. I would think that indeed there would be a cost, and of course, as we know, when proposing a motion which involves cost to council, there needs to be some explanation of that in the motion itself. Could I suggest that the removal of these planter boxes with, I'm guessing, good quality trees in them, I don't know that, it would be something which I think is probably another subject which we might deal with, which is the unfortunate state of many of the trees, but that's off subject. We could most certainly, even though we were given them for free, we could sell them. I'm sure there would be people who would love to have these in their backyard, their front yard. Maybe they'd like to inhibit the parking in front of their own house, perhaps, I don't know. Would be my suggestion. It as has been stated.
So have you finished answering the question?
I just wanted to.
You're going to speak to it, which you can.
Indeed. You've interrupted me just in my train of thought, which was going to be just in regard to the number of them. So the claim is that there are very few of them. So I would think that we would not be looking at.
Just a point of order, Mayor, if I may.
Yep.
I understand we've had 2 speak for and 2 against. Can we put the motion?
Yeah, you don't need a point of order for that. You can call for for the motion to be put, in which case I just need to check something. Here, under our code? Yes. Just checking what the code says about the right of reply in this situation. So you have the right of reply, Councillor McKenzie.
I'm not 100% sure that this is following through on code of meeting practice, being that it's actually altered now, and we're now speaking on the amendment put forward.
This wasn't a formal amendment.
But either way, I'm happy to speak on it. Even the wording there, that's fine. And if I did put that in, thank you very much for that clarification. When you read it, I move the council remove all plant boxes from town centres to increase parking. So obviously there's no need to remove a planter box if it's not going to increase parking, which is essentially the amendment that Councillor Beasley has put forth. And the thrust of this is to obviously spend as little public money for as great a public benefit as possible. And even the original motion is only talking about planter boxes that would increase car parking. So we're essentially on the same thing.
So, sorry to interrupt you, Councillor McKenzie. I just want to seek some clarification because there appears to be some confusion. Councillor Beasley raised the words at the bottom of the screen there, and my understanding was that both you and Councillor Graham accepted that as a change to your original notice of motion. Are you saying you didn't accept that? Because it's not an amendment.
No.
You mentioned that Councillor Beasley made an amendment. He didn't make an amendment. It's just a change to your notice of motion.
Yes, the original motion.
Yeah, look, that's fine, and that then gives me a right of reply, which I just gave, and
just
I
making
think
sure
that change there is just fine. I don't think it's essentially a heck of a lot different from what I had in the beginning. Maybe it clarifies a little bit this way or that, but the thrust of both of them is quite simply to remove any planter box that inhibits parking. That to me seems to have been blatantly obvious from the beginning, yet seems to have been argued against with some fervour. As far as costs go, the benefit to the community And the lack of maintenance that will have to be spent on these boxes will overtake any cost of removing the boxes in the longer term. Simple as that. So to me, it's a win-win. We get parking, we spend less money. How can you vote against it? Thank you.
Thank you. No, that was the right reply, sorry. And I just want to clarify that we're talking about 4 planter boxes in car parking in Taree. Okay.
Right,
So,
it's all town centres.
okay. Whatever it says. I'm going to put the motion. All in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. Thank you. That's 3. All against? Thank you. Motion's lost. Moving on to the second notice of motion, which is Councillor Tickle.
Thank you, man. Could I please ask the note takers to bring up a slight variation to published wording? While it's coming up, I'll... no, we'll knit it up, so...
Yeah.
Here we go. No, that's not it. I did send the revised wording. It's picked up the council right to the Minister for Local Government. You found that one?
Did you receive a changed motion from Councillor Tickle? He may have forgotten to press send.
It's got 4 on it.
No, there was
Change to the top.
there is a point 4, but there's also a change to the paragraph. I'll find what I've sent.
All right, just read it out slowly and we can take it down.
The council write to the Minister for Local Government regarding his letter dated 13th July, forwarded to us by the member for Mile Lakes, in response to council's call for review of ministerial orders with respect to investment policy, drawing on the following points. 1, thank the Minister for his response. Note that council shares his view that councils must have an investment philosophy that is prudent. Notes that the Minister supports an investment mostly in fixed interest securities, such as government bonds and also via T Corp. Council seeks from the Minister a practical extension of the prudential investment allowed to government bonds and fixed interest securities by enabling a limited placement to manage funds that invest solely in Australian fixed interest securities asset class. That is in line with the prudential philosophy. This maintains the integrity of a prudential approach to investment in fixed interest securities, such as bonds, but with the following advantages. 1, no maturity date, which enables partial or full withdrawals or adding to the investment at any time. 2, professional management of the duration of the fixed interest securities. This is not contrary to the intent of the orders to maintain a prudential approach, but it requires a change to the orders to enable placement indirectly through a third party via fund manager. Look, sorry, I'll need a second.
You do, Councillor Beasley.
Thank you. Speaking to the motion, look, in essence, and I will say now with a disclaimer that what I'm talking about now is not an endorsement for anybody listening to invest in fixed interest security funds as such, and nor is council endorsing that. So it does not be construed to be investment advice to any individual who is listening. There are a number of fund managers, and I can call them out. There's the Vanguard Australian Bond Fund, for example. There's the UBS Australian Bond Fund. There's Western Asset Australian Bond Fund that hold as their underlying security a spread of Australian government bonds, state government bonds or treasury bonds, such as T Corp. The advantage of using a pooled fund such as that is that you get a spread of the assets You can have a spread of maturities. You can access the funds generally in about 7 days. You can add money to it. So it is not contrary to the prudential approach called out by the Minister, but it gives a lot of practical advantages to councils in investing. By way of history, back in around 2007, 2008, there were a number of councils throughout Australia, for that matter, invested in ill-fated fixed interest investments where the assets were linked to the United States, made up of collateral debt obligations. And that was the catalyst for the current investment policy. I say not all councils got caught up in that. And I will say, I guess with a deal of pride, that at that time I implored the former Greater Taree City Council to pull all money out of those investments because of the risk of those underlying assets. Greater Taree City Council did do that. However, Great Lakes were caught, Mid-Coast Water were caught. A massive councils throughout New South Wales were caught with those funds, which meant that they were not receiving interest and they were effectively frozen for quite a time before the money was released. Now, that same professional opinion has the reverse, saying that we ought to be investing in fixed interest funds that are pooled, such as a unit trust. They are not, they do have secure assets underneath them, but there is a massive advantage for councils for proceeding that way. I'm not going to read out in full, but I did have a sample of a letter that might go to the Minister. That will be totally up to the Mayor, subject to the carriage of this particular motion. But I guess my annoyance is that too often we have policy advisors to a Minister with a limited knowledge in a certain area, not accepting the fact that they do not know everything about certain matters that come before them, and would rather say no rather than investigate and look outside their comfort zone to get information they ought to have. And indeed, with due respect to the Minister, he also perhaps is not qualified in this regard, and to dismiss this out of hand is also a dereliction of his duty, because I believe there's a lot of merit in having council's capacity to invest in that way, both in terms of security and flexibility. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Beasley.
I speak in support of Councillor Tickle's motion, primarily for all the reasons that he's already outlined, but most definitely in regard to having no maturity date on at least a portion of our fixed interest investments. Looking at the table provided in the attachments for a later item, which is item 20.2, one can see the maturity dates of many of these investments is years in the future. Some, I'm sure the Director of Corporate Services could tell me exactly, but I'm looking at 2031 and probably further into the future. So to be able to have investments that have the opportunity for council to reinvest at better rates would be, I think, an excellent thing for us to be working towards.
Thank you. Further speakers? Councillor Wilson.
Look, the Minister has told us to stay mostly in fixed interest and T-Corp, and that may seem fair enough, but what he hasn't given us is a practical way to hold the same fixed interest securities through professionally managed funds and allowing partial withdrawals without the maturity dates. It gives us flexibility. So we're not requesting for venture capital. It is a request for common sense cash flow flexibility inside the same prudential envelope. I support the motion.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Put the motion. Did you want to write a reply? No.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. That's everybody.
Sorry, Mayor, just noting for the meeting that Councillor Mackenzie's left the room.
Councillor Mackenzie. He has. Sorry. Thank
Sorry.
you. Did he? So he didn't vote. Sorry, I didn't notice him leaving. Thank you for the minute takers. All right. Now we are now able to move to the printed reports in the business papers, and Councillor Tickle, you have a motion.
Mayor, procedural motion, move that there be a change in the agenda where item 7.2 proceeds immediately after item 15.
Thank you. Seconder for that. Councillor Turnbull. Shall I put the motion? Everybody happy with that? Yep. All in favour? Thank you. That's everybody, noting that Councillor Mackenzie's not here. So that means we can move directly to item 17.2. And I'll call for a mover, please. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the development application DA 2025/0366 for the establishment of extractive industry quarry at 465 Shallow Bay Road, Shallow Bay, be refused for the reasons set out in attachment 1.
Thank you. A seconder, please. Councillor Irving. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I speak to it, could I ask some questions of the Director through the Acting General Manager? Through the Acting GM Director, there were some comments made at the forum this morning that I'd just like to seek some clarity about, if you could help with that. The first was Dr. Wood questioned the legality of a third-party funded traffic study and questioned that being considered and that there was a considered bias in that process of a third-party funded traffic study being considered. Is it usual that such a study would be included in the consideration, and how does staff handle differing opinions and differing expert opinions when they consider and make their report?
Through the General Manager, it's not unusual for people putting within submissions to seek advice from professionals and add that to their submission. We've answered this issue in one of the concerns that was raised within the schedule of submissions within the report, and it states council staff conduct an independent assessment of the application and do not solely rely on statements made in submitted documentation to inform the decision making. So I guess in the context of this, a formal referral was provided to the transport team and was informed by the application's documentation against the relevant considerations, which would be policy and legislation. Yeah.
I've got 3 questions, so Mayor, just so you know. My second question was that Mr. Kingston said if blasting could occur, and I may have the details wrong, but what I heard, if blasting can occur less than 500 metres from the nearest residence, then council doesn't have the power to approve and it needed to be a different pathway. Could you help me understand what that was about?
Through the General Manager, I assume he was referring to designated development. So within the council report on page 51, it talks about the different triggers of which require the application to be considered designated development. So I think it's in reference to that. The comment suggests that if the application is considered designated development, then council does not have the ability to approve. But within the council report, the officer identifies that an assessment was done and against the information that was submitted as part of the application, and the information provided suggests it sat just below the threshold.
Just for clarity, because that was my third question, he made quite clear that he thought it could be a designated development and therefore it needed to be a different pathway, and he wasn't sure the council could consider the matter. So what you're saying is in the report. Sorry, just clarify if you could about that designated development and the pathway requirement there.
Yeah, just that the triggers for designated development are listed within page 51 of the report, and we acted with the best knowledge and information at hand to suggest that the application sat just below the threshold, and so that council can be the one that can determine if an application came in and it had thresholds beyond those stated, then we wouldn't be the decision-making body.
Thank you. Thanks for those clarifications. I'd now like to speak to the motion, if that's okay, Mayor. Bearing in mind for people listening, there's a double negative in this. So if you're speaking for the motion is that the quarry be refused. So if you're speaking for the motion, you're speaking against the quarry and vice versa. So bear in mind the double negative. There were a couple of comments made at the forum this morning. I know Mr. Foster asked that our decision be based on objective evidence. I think it is clear that council always bases its decisions on objective evidence, and objective evidence is present throughout the report. Acting on objective evidence doesn't mean if we disagree with you, it doesn't mean that we weren't acting on objective evidence, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I also said that expert evidence is disregarded, but that's clearly not the case in the report. There was another speaker, Mr. Hanson, that said that council deserves a balanced report that presents both sides, but then questioned about the third-party traffic which presented both sides. So I think council clearly in the report has presented both sides, and also asked that it deserves careful and objective consideration before making the decision. That's the process of the staff report and the process that we'll be going through in this debate. Dr. Wood asked about the legality of the third-party funded traffic study, and I think the director has adequately answered that. There were various concerns on the environmental impact as well, but also through Mr. Jamin's presentation and the piece that he gave to us, he was concerned that submissions shouldn't be a numbers game, and I want to assure everybody that it's not a numbers game. And in any submission, and you can look back through the history of decisions made by this council in this term and previous terms, one well-written and well-spoken argument in one submission can often outweigh 200 submissions not so well thought out. So we absolutely don't see submissions as a numbers game. What I do see is the expert opinion that's laid out in this report that's before me, and I've listened to all the presentations this morning and looked at the submissions in the report. And the reason why I'm supporting the recommendation for refusal is exactly what it said in the report. There are very clear reasons, and they are as laid out in the report. The local road network is not suitable for quarry haulage. Traffic and road safety impacts are unacceptable. Noise, air quality and ecological impacts are unresolved. It's incompatible with the environmental character and future planning direction of the locality. The site is not suitable and approval is not in the public interest. I was particularly interested in one argument that was put forward this morning that if the site was used for primitive camping and ecological tourism use, that the traffic would be the same. And I certainly don't buy that argument that a few people going camping is the same as up to eight truck movements a day. So no, I'm absolutely supporting the recommendation as written.
Thank you. Councillor Irving, did you wish to speak to it? Okay. Councillor Tickle.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Miller. In the assessment, council staff have relied largely on the Great Lakes Local Environmental Plan 2014 in looking at the merit arguments either for or against the development proposal. The report is extensive, calling out on the environmental issues, calling out issues regarding vehicle and truck movement, calling out the constraints there was with the capacity of the road to handle that degree of traffic, calling out that there would also need to be consultation with the state government because the entrance would likely to the main road would likely to need further treatment, which was outside the capacity of council. There's a whole raft of reasons why this matter could not be approved under the Great Lakes LEP 2014. However, the draft local environmental plan for Mid Coast Council currently sits with the Department of Planning and the Minister for sign off, and that has been somewhat protracted. To get to that point was a lot of consultation with the community, including consultation with the people of Coomber Park. And what that consultation came up with was to have that area rezoned for conservation use. And it is incumbent upon council to consider the draft local environmental plan in the decision making, which indeed the staff have done. In summary, the community have called out, thou shalt not desecrate that area that has been designated for conservation use. For this, if this matter was to proceed contrary to the recommendation of council staff, that would also be contrary to the will of the people in that area who supported the draft LEP as it stands. For that reason, council needs to support the staff recommendation for refusal.
Thank you. Further speakers? Councillor Beasley.
I'll be speaking against the recommendation for a number of reasons, some of which were brought up by speakers this morning, Mr. Hanson and Dr. Woods, and it's with that in mind, I'd like to ask a couple of questions of the Director of Infrastructure and Engineering Services through the Acting General Manager. These are questions which I have sent through to him prior. Director, there's been extensive work done in the last few weeks on Shallow Bay Road. Could you tell us what the overall budget for that work was?
The overall budget was in the vicinity of $170,000, $180,000. We did resheeting to approximately around 2 kilometres of the road in 2 different sections over a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Do you consider the whole of Shallow Bay Road to have been done with that work?
There was a third element of work done, which was a maintenance grading was done. So we resheeted 2 sections of it that add up to about 2 kilometres, which is generally importing gravel, placing, compacting and reshaping the road surface. And then we undertook maintenance grading of the rest of the road, which was on its own was around about an estimated cost of about $30,000.
And could you tell me, or us, how much material was used in this the refurbishing of the road?
Yeah, we imported a little over 3,000 tonnes of gravel.
Okay, 3,000 tonnes. And one further question, could you tell us where that was sourced, please?
That was one from our operated quarry at Minimba. So council operates a quarry in what was originally proposed as a landfill site. And we win gravel from that, and then we haul it to the various different projects around that area.
Well, now that you've answered that question, I do actually have probably 2 more questions, just to give us an idea of the towns that the material would need to travel through, and what that distance might be.
I wouldn't have the distance off the top of my hand, but obviously, it's going to travel through Nabiac, Darawang, and then around through Tuncurry and Foster and on to Pacific Palms. I believe that would be the shorter route than going out to the south and coming back along the any of the other road connections that way.
Thank you. It's a very long way to take an awfully large amount of that sort of material. That sort of material probably wouldn't be supplied from a quarry of this size, so it wouldn't be ending the need for that sort of material to come from elsewhere in the area. I personally actually see those trucks, or have seen those trucks go by at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they go by through Tiona at a great speed. These truck drivers are on a very tight schedule, and it's this sort of thing that a small quarry in an area like Coomba would at least cut down on. We spend a lot of money on our roads that are being deteriorated constantly, unfortunately, by large truck movements, and to have a quarry of this size that would be able to supply sufficient material, at least for Coomba itself, would, I would think in the end, actually cut down on truck movements down Coomba Road itself, while it may increase those truck movements on Shallow Bay Road. I think the net effect would be that most certainly for those deliveries that need to go north from the intersection where it meets Coomba Road, it would mean that people on the southern end would not have those truck movements, and they are large, and we know, and we've been told, and we all agree how poor the quality of Coomba Road is. The material is going to be taken there anyway, because a job is a job and people will pay for it. The fact is that as unfortunately poor as the road is, as dangerous as it is on the many corners that there are, and the speeding that takes place on Coomba Road, it's just going to, people are going to want it. They're going to need it. and it needs to be supplied from somewhere. By having a local quarry that, from looking at least the results of the reports that came to council, by and large, it seemed to tick pretty much all the boxes. There weren't problems at any great distance with dust and pollution that I could see. The blast, which, I mean, considering this is someone who would be living in the local area, most definitely would be telling people that it was going to take place. It's a slightly isolated community, and having as many services in one's community, I think, is better for everyone. It's better for the community itself, and it means that you can deal directly. I would expect that with a quarry this size, one would phone the owner rather than phoning a very large corporation. You'd know when it was going to turn up. I think Mr. Hanson spoke about the length of time that it takes for deliveries to actually appear at the site, and that would simplify the work that's going on. We know that there's plenty more work going to be going on. We've seen the increase in DAs in the area, not just in Coombe itself, but also in Pacific Palms and Smiths Lake. They all require some sort of product like this, even at the outset of the job, if it's not used later on. The cost, of course, of carting and the pollution that's created by the trucks, I think, is another matter. We're looking at a difference of tens of kilometres in each truck trip. I think it's worth taking into account that environmental damage that takes place, the fact that these trucks currently are driving through 40k zones, school zones in the morning. They're driving through town centres. They're driving across the Foster-Tuncurry Bridge. They're making traffic conditions worse. And I tell you, when you see one coming at you at well over the speed limit around the corner at the bends at Tiona, it's a very scary event.
Thank you. I have a question for the Executive Manager. Assuming that there is a need for more gravel use in Coombe Park, and I don't believe that is the case, but let's just pretend that there is a need for more gravel to be used in Coombe Park. Does that allow the planning staff to ignore any of the planning decisions? Is it a matter that should have been considered in the assessment?
Through the General Manager, I guess, well, it has been in part under, is it in the public interest? But I guess what I would say to some of the comments is existing suppliers travelling further might create broader road impacts, but their operations and haulage routes are not the subject of this application. Council can't approve an unsuitable site on the assumption that it might reduce impacts elsewhere, particularly where that claim hasn't been demonstrated within the application. I'd further add that it doesn't also resolve the central traffic issue. The physical road and intersection upgrades required for heavy vehicles have not been demonstrated as being able to be designed, assessed, funded or secured.
Thank you. Anything else? Councillor Wilson.
I'm not being subjective here. I'm going off the report, so I'm not going to surmise. So 143 submissions is not a lot when you look at 100,000 people in the LGA, but for a particular matter, it's quite a bit, even if you stack it. So there's obviously a fair bit of public interest. There is an inadequate road network that's been called out, unresolved noise and air quality impacts, and the site earmarked for conservation under the draft LEP that's been called out before. If we had one ambulance station in the LGA, it's going to take a long time for the ambulance to get to wherever the call is. Similar to a quarry, if you had one quarry, it's going to take a long time. And if you had multiple quarries, it's going to take a shorter time. It would make it cheaper to transport. However, the localities need to be able to support it. So you've got to put it in the right spot. So to me, this isn't a close call. Accepting the recommendation and the motion and refusing it is the only decision that protects the locality and the integrity of the process.
Thank you. Anyone else, or will I go to Councillor Graham?
Yeah, I'd just like to make some comments. I'll be voting against the recommendation. Basically, I believe the landowner is lawfully acquired private property, should have the freedom to use that property for productive purposes, including operating a quarry. The role of government, local government, is to protect property rights and prevent harm to others, not to decide whether a lawful business activity is desirable. Restricting the use of private land without clear evidence of rights violations, I believe, undermines the fundamental principle of private ownership. I think ownership should include the right to develop and use the land, provided those activities do not violate the rights of others, and I don't believe this does in this case. A quarry can create jobs, supply essential construction materials, generate income for the owner, and it contributes to the local economy. I don't believe local government should unnecessarily obstruct voluntary economic activity. If a quarry causes excessive noise, dust, pollution, or damages neighbouring properties, the operator should then be held liable through legal action or compensation. The solution is to address the actual harm rather than prohibit the activity altogether. So, having looked at the report, I don't believe there will be any adverse effects to the residents and the greater community, so I'll be voting against the recommendation.
Thank you. Anyone else, or I'll go back to Councillor Miller? No? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. For my right of reply, I'll say a couple of things. I respect Councillor Graham's position. I disagree with it, but I respect it because that was his position in his campaign, and he's sticking to it, and so I respect that. His political view is you should be able to do anything you like on your own land, and he's always been very clear on that. I was voted in on that basis. I disagree with it, but I respect your view. For me, this stays with what I've said about other issues like some mobile phone towers in previous times. It's the right idea in the wrong spot. I remember saying that about a mobile phone tower that was, I think, in Wingham, and they came back with a different location. It was the right idea in the right spot. This, clearly there is a need for these materials. There is an opportunity, I think, to make probably a good business out of extracting these materials, but to me it's the wrong spot for the reasons that are there in the report. Councillor Beasley was saying a few things, and I think he was trying to equate truck movements for road work with truck movements from the quarry, but of course truck movements, we're not doing road work in that particular specific small area every single day, and so the occasional truck movements for the occasional road work doesn't equate to the daily truck movements for a quarry, so the equation doesn't work. The final thing that I'd like to say is just a thank you to both sides who have spoken today and to the people who are in the gallery at the moment. You can't see on the Zoom, but it's a packed gallery. Hi, everybody. This is an emotive issue, and I wanted to say thank you to both sides, that it has been a respectful process, and the gallery has listened respectfully, which is not always the case when it's a packed gallery. So I'd just like to thank both sides for the manner that they've conducted themselves in considering this.
Thank you very much. And with that, I will put the motion. All those in favour of the motion as printed? Thank you. And those against? So 3 councillors voted against and the rest for, so the motion is carried, which means the quarry is refused. Thank you very much. That allows us to go back to, don't feel that you need to be polite there. You're welcome to leave, all those people who were here for that, and we will continue as you leave. I'm moving to item 16.1, which is the matters outstanding. And yes, please.
Let's give him a moment.
Councillors, item 16.1 is a report that presents a list of outstanding resolutions that have been made by Council since the 1st of January 2018. Presented for the information of Council.
Thank you. Mover, please. Councillor Tickle.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the information provided in the resolutions register 29th of July 2026, attachment 1, be noted.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Turnbull. Councillor Tickle.
Thank you,
No, anyone wish to speak to it? Councillor Miller?
Just a question, please, to the acting GM or wherever you'd like to send the question. There's one of the matters outstanding were the letters sent about the delays to the LEP. Those have been sent. Just wondering if we've had any responses yet to those letters.
Through the General Manager, yes, the letter was sent. In the same week, we received a response to request comment on what was mostly clause drafting comments regarding a draft instrument. And the strategic planning team responded within the same week, and we are now back to waiting on another draft. Yeah. So it was good to get a response.
Thank you. Yes. Anything else on that? Councillor Beasley?
Question to the Acting General Manager through the Mayor. I've noticed that this report is different to previous reports, and I'm wondering what changes the Acting General Manager has made to them. It would seem that it's been, and I'm quoting the Mayor on this, cleaned up. What was that process?
Through the Mayor, all we've simply done is looked at the report and made sure that all the outstanding resolutions that have been addressed have been taken off, and the ones that haven't are still there. So it's just about tidying up the comments and making sure that we've done our job in providing the right information to Council.
Anything else? No, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. That's everybody. It's carried. Going to 16.2, Code of Meeting Practice. Acting GM?
Councillors, there's an alternative recommendation that staff have drafted. That could please be brought up for minute takers. The purpose of this report is to present a draft code of meeting practice that is based off the 2021 model meeting code to Council so that can be placed on public exhibition. The report has drafted, proposed only one change to the draft code of meeting practice, which was the order of business in part 8. Since the time of drafting this report, we've reviewed it and we've essentially recognised an error where we need to delete the section titled pre-meeting briefing sessions. That includes clauses 3.36 to 3.42 on the basis that the Minister has drafted a regulation that says you cannot have pre-meeting briefings, so we can't have that in our code of meeting practice. So the alternative recommendation is on the screen for councillors, and the intent is to put that out on public exhibition for a minimum period of 28 days, with submissions being invited for 42 days.
Okay. Thank you. Mover? Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. Before I move it, just a question that the Acting General Manager has drafted. Why do we have a minimum of 28 days for the exhibition and then submissions for 42? Isn't it normally the same number? Can we clean that up a little?
Not through anyone. On the
Through the GM?
You smile at it. Through myself.
Go for it.
Through myself. There are certain things within the Local Government Act that don't necessarily follow our normal practice. We would normally say we place something on public exhibition for a minimum period of 25 days in accordance with our policy. The Local Government Act is explicit in how the Code of Meeting Practice must be publicly advertised. So that is direct from the Local Government Act, so we can't really change that. What it essentially means is you publicly exhibit it for 28 days, but you allow people to put submissions in beyond that 28-day period up to a period of 42 days. And that applies for plans of management as well. It's exactly the same wording.
Would it cause any operational issues if I were to move the public exhibition and the submissions both be 42 days? It seems strange to me to ask for submissions on something that you can't exhibit.
In practice, we extend our public exhibition period longer than the 28 days, and we try to line it up with the submission period.
Thank you. In which case, I'll move a slightly different, and minute takers will just be able to delete the last word on the top line and a few words from the second line. So I move that the draft code of meeting practice provided in attachment 1 be placed on public exhibition and submissions be invited for a period of 42 days in accordance with section 361 of the Local Government Act 1993, subject to the following amendment to the draft code, which is the deletion of the section titled pre-meeting briefing sessions, including clauses 3.36 to 3.42 inclusive.
Councillor, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but
yes, I didn't quite nail it, did I?
I suspect you've made it worse.
Yes, you have, because the code is explicit. I'm just going to bring up the legislation now.
I'm going to suggest that if the legislation says do this, we should probably just leave it.
Hence my question earlier, yes.
Just give me 30 seconds, I'm just pulling it up now. The legislation, section 361, clearly says a period of public exhibition must not be less than 28 days, and the public notice period must specify a period of not less than 42 days. So we've taken it directly.
Thank you. So then can I say, be placed in public exhibition for 42 days?
Yes,
And submissions be as written.
repeat it.
Thank you.
Yep, excellent. Yes, councillor Graham, thank you. Do you wish to speak to it, councillor Miller?
Look, this has all got a little messy, which is unfortunate, and it's probably as well, it's the result of an error, but the thing is to clean it up. The error was pointed out by Councillor Beasley during the meeting at our last meeting. If Councillor Beasley was aware of it before the meeting, it probably would have been helpful to have brought it up before the meeting so we didn't need to go through all of this. But the main thing is we're cleaning it up now. It's purely procedural. And I just want to be really clear on what it is we're trying to change. All that we are doing is changing the order of the code of meeting practice, like the headings of what order stuff happens in. Nothing's being added to the agenda. Nothing's being removed from the agenda. It's just moving the order of the agenda around a bit. So it really is a minor procedural issue. But just to be completely transparent, we'll put it on public exhibition for 42 days. People can give submissions. If people want to give submissions on the agenda is exactly the same, just dealt with in a slightly different order, then they're welcome to do so. The order is to put the questions with notice and the notice of motions at the end of the meeting, and that's based purely on, in my view, public interest. And today was the perfect example of that. We had a packed gallery who was here for an item, and they had to sit and listen to important issues, but not important to them, about planter boxes and investment tools, when really they just wanted to hear about their issue and leave. And so, you know, we might think that our notices of motion are the most important thing on the agenda, but I often think mine are, but often they're not. And so to the community, really, it's these big emotive development applications that are really what the community want to hear about, which is why the suggested order of the agenda is done that way.
Thank you. Councillor Graham, did you wish to speak to it? No? Anyone else? Councillor Tickle?
Just briefly, Mayor, this is a rubber stamp. It's going out to the community for exhibition. The Minister for Local Government says, suck it up, this is what it's got to look like, whether we agree or not. I think it'll be wonderful if the public, during the 42 days, vent their spleen against the Code of Meeting Practice, copy the Minister for Local Government to point out the error in his ways that really constrains councils for getting decent information so that they can act in the best interest of the public, whether they become fully informed coming to a meeting, which gives good decision making. Not having the opportunity for a pre-meeting where there can be clarification in certain things, what we're left with is question after question after question after question, clarification, which means you're going around in a circle sometimes for decision making. But the thing that stands out for me, while that's not wrong because it's transparent, the public can hear it, I will say that. The practice of this council has been that when a matter has been discussed in a pre-meeting where there's clarification, we will more often than not repeat the same question or bring it out in debate. So there's transparency and clarity. This heavy-handed action to control a handful of councils that can be controlled in a better way is not a great thing for good governance, for good practice. And what stands out to me, and I did say at the last meeting, when you have an election, when you have new councillors inducted to become councillors and act, one of the best learning grounds they will have is the pre-meeting, when they can interact with staff, they can ask questions about papers before them, so they have a full understanding and they're not left swimming. There's going to be an absolute reliance with where this stands now for new councillors to bring experienced councillors under their wing, experienced councillors to help them and educate them and go through the papers, which may or may not give them factual information because it precludes the professional staff from giving guidance. It's an absolute nonsense, and I implore the public to stand up and say, Minister for Local Government, this is a nonsense.
Thank you. Councillor Beasley?
I'd like to propose an alternate motion, please.
It's called an amendment.
It's called an amendment.
Well, it is. And
It was called an amendment the last time I did that, and then we seemed to get into some difficulty with what's an amendment and what is a motion.
That's all set out in the
I
Code of Meeting
understand.
Practice, and it's all very clear. We need to call this an amendment because the Code of Meeting Practice gives you rules about how to deal with amendments. So please proceed.
I stand corrected. Could minute takers please bring up the text which I've sent through previously?
Yes.
Thank you, minute takers. So I move that one, Council not consider any amendments to the recently reinstated Code of Meeting Practice 103/2025, noting that this current code will only be for the interim period awaiting the completion and gazettal of a new statewide model Code of Meeting Practice. 2, as soon as practical, that the General Manager refer the following matters to the Council's Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee, noting that ARIC's role also includes matters such as compliance and governance. A, review the adequacy and effectiveness of Council's internal compliance controls regarding statutory public exhibition calendars, with specific reference to the irregularity that occurred regarding the Code of Meeting Practice document public submission window 23rd of October to the 2nd of December 2025, noting that it was less than the minimum 42 days required by legislation. B, evaluate the governance risks and internal control frameworks associated with proposing amendments to statutory documents while a formal public exhibition period is actively underway. And C, provide independent assurance and process improvement guidance to ensure future statutory community consultations strictly adhere to regulatory timelines and best practice governance principles.
It's a point of order, Mayor. It doesn't need to be an amendment if the mover and the seconder accept the changes, if Councillor Beasley wanted to explore that route. Microphone.
You're correct. And also the other thing I'm considering at the moment, and I'll need to ask staff, is I'm not allowed to accept an amendment if it is the reverse of the original. The original says that we're going to make these amendments and put out public exhibition, and this starts off by saying not consider any amendments. So I'll come to staff there. But the first question is, do the mover and seconder wish to accept this change?
No.
Oh, thank you. I had assumed we'd get there. In which case it only takes one no, not two.
If I might, Mayor, my amendment speaks about amendments and not in regard to public exhibition, which is what the recommended motion is about.
Well, I think it's paragraph 1 I'm having trouble with. I'm reading 1 and it says not consider any amendments. So I'm going to ask for the Acting General Manager to make a comment.
The purpose of the current recommendation, not the amendment, but the recommendation, was to put a draft meeting code of practice on public exhibition so that amendments to that code could be considered by the community. Those amendments include the removal of the pre-meeting briefing section as well as a change in the order of business. So they are amendments to the code that's being proposed to be placed at public exhibition. So to not consider those amendments is directly opposite the recommendation that's being put forward.
And not to put it out on public exhibition is also against
Correct.
it.
And that's in relation to point 1, not necessarily point 2, which is a different matter altogether.
No, point 2 is different. So I guess I'm just throwing on the table at the moment that maybe we could add 2 to the original.
In which case, Mayor, I would, considering that the ruling has come down against or claiming that it is a negative of the original motion, that my amendment would therefore be my point 2.
Yes. You could add it to the original one, but I don't think you can replace the original motion with just 2 because it's a different motion.
Which was what I was asking for.
Yeah. No. Would the mover and second consider adding 2 to the original motion?
So I think what Councillor Beasley is saying, which does solve the problem that the Mayor's pointing out, is use the original motion as point 1 and then point 2 as written. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct, yes.
Sorry, that's what I was proposing. I thought you were saying something different.
Yeah,
Thank you for
which
clarifying.
Does deal with the
Yes.
sort of 180-degree problem. I will have a question about referral to ARIC, but I still, it would need to be an amendment. I still don't accept it as a change.
Okay, yep. But it would allow me, I think it would
Yes.
make it easier for me to accept it as an amendment.
Yes.
That could be considered as an amendment.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So we'll just get it up there. So I think we're just deleting 1
Yeah,
and inserting the original 1.
yes.
The original unnumbered bit.
Yeah, that bit becomes 1 and then the rest is still 2.
Yeah, all of it with the dot point as well. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's where we're at. And then the issue is, so this is an amendment because it hasn't been accepted by the mover, which means I need a seconder for the amendment. Who's going to do that? Councillor McKenzie. Just let me get that down. And then the next step would be to ask the mover of the amendment to speak to his amendment.
I will. The reason that this is actually before us at the moment is because of the altering of the order of agenda items at council meetings. Councillor Miller actually brought up a very good point about DAs, such as we've dealt with today with a packed room. I think it also happened when it was Councillor Smith's last motion. There was a packed room, and the order of business changed for that. So we already have a mechanism to deal with those sorts of necessary changes that we should make when a large number of members of the public are here. And I granted it was a tiny thing, but it was still a thing. But I do notice that in the report, it states, I think it's 3 times. So on the second page, which is page 14, that the amendment to the order of business was made following feedback at the strategic workshop on the 26th of November. That further down the page under discussion, it states that it was previously discussed with councillors and then under consultation in the last paragraph, it's previously been workshop with councillors. Well, I was most certainly at that particular workshop, and I was arguing all sorts of things that day. I'm sure other councillors would remember, and they'd also remember the very long list of objections that I had during a council meeting. But this particular change of the agenda order came as just an offhand comment from the General Manager, who said, oh, and by the way, we want to move the motions. To which I asked to where, and he stated after the DAs, because we get people who in the room who would like to have a resolution to their DA and not sit around listening to us proselytise. Fair enough. When we received on the 10th of December the MCC Code of Meeting Practice, no one, believe me, no one, unless maybe someone did notice it and not mention it would have noticed that the order of business had been changed. We were looking at everything else. We were looking at the requirements which the Minister...
Councillor, I'm going to ask you to speak for yourself and not your fellow colleagues around the table in terms of what other people read or noticed. Certainly speak for yourself.
And in what way, Mayor, was I speaking for other members?
You were saying we didn't notice it. I'm sure other people around the table were very aware of the document. So happy for you to put your perspective.
Okay, fair enough. So in which case, councillors, if they had have known of it and didn't mention it, would have realised at the time that on the 26th of November they received a document which had a different order of business that they were going to vote on that day, and had been sent out to public exhibition incorrectly, if in fact they were aware of it. So this is a tiny thing, and I agree, but it's the process that has taken place. It was like an answer by omission. The motions and questions with notice are going to move after the DAs. Well, I would have expected that was before the reports, but they've been put right at the end. It puts some motions at the end of often a 3-hour meeting, and it's difficult for everyone to maintain any sort of enthusiasm after that period of time. Right at the outset is by far the best time, unless we have a situation like we've had today where we have a lot of members of the community who want to hear a resolution straight away. They should be at the outset. It's been the stated order of business ever since this term began, and seemed to work fine. There was no complaint from councillors that should be changed. It seemed to be a change that was slipped through without us particularly knowing. And then what, of course, has happened is that, as stated, I can't see, yes, in regard to my point B, evaluate the governance risks and internal control frameworks associated with proposing amendments to statutory documents while a formal public exhibition period is actively underway. That seems to be what's happened, and that's why I've particularly asked that question. If things were changing at the time that a formal public exhibition was taking place, then we should be looking at it. We should be finding out why that's happened, and be reviewing, as it says, the adequacy and effectiveness of internal compliance controls.
Thank you, Councillor Beasley. So can we, it's a very long, did you want to speak? Okay.
If I may, I have a question for somebody, anybody. It states here, the only change in the draft code of meeting practice relates to the order of business in Part 8 of the code. So my understanding is all that we're looking at doing here is simply moving the motions from the beginning of the meeting to the end of the meeting. Did I hear a conversational comment here somewhere about getting rid of the councillor pre-meeting briefing sessions?
That's correct, Councillor Mackenzie. If the minute takers could just bring the amendment up on the screen, because there's essentially the same. It's point 1. So, as printed in the business papers, you've just read out, Councillor Mackenzie, when it was originally drafted, the intent was just to change the essentially order of the meeting. There's a table within the business paper that shows that. Subsequent to the business papers being presented and published, we have recognised that the draft Code of Meeting Practice still has the section in relation to pre-meeting briefings. The Minister has produced a regulation that essentially says it is unlawful to have pre-meeting briefing sessions. So if we're going to essentially advertise an amendment to the Code of Meeting Practice around the order of business, it is prudent to include the deletion of the pre-meeting briefing sessions, given that they are no longer lawful as a result of the regulation, as part of that process. So that's been picked up, which is why I put forward an alternate recommendation to the elected body, which is slightly different to what's printed in the business papers.
Right.
Thank you.
So it's just as clarification, it's actually illegal to do that now anyway.
That is correct.
So why do we have to include any of that in
Because I'd rather take it out of the Code of Meeting Practice for clarity becomes a public document. If the community then sees you've got pre-meeting briefings in your code of meeting practice and then they look at the regulation and says you can't have it, the immediate question would be, why is it there?
Right. So why is it there if it's now illegal and we're putting it into a draft? Why wouldn't it be
We're taking it out of the
removed
draft
before we put it for public exhibition?
So what happened? What happened was we had the 2025 Code of Meeting Practice,
Yes.
which didn't have pre-meeting briefing sessions in it,
Yes.
based on the model code. That model code was essentially overturned by the state government, state parliament. That then forced us to adopt the former Code of Meeting Practice, which is what we're dealing with under today's meeting. That former Code of Meeting Practice already had in it pre-meeting briefings. So we now need to take that out to deal with the changes that have been made.
So that hasn't been automatically removed,
No.
so the public isn't confused.
It hasn't been, no,
If
which is why we're doing it.
doing
double
it now.
negative there, but yeah, okay then. So I can understand we're now doing that just as a matter of clarity.
Correct.
Okay then. Now I shall address the basis of what's going on here. And I'm going to throw forward a slightly different point of view. I tend to think differently than a lot of other people. Give it what you will. It's interesting watching people pack gallery. Some of the people are obviously bored as they've got no interest in whatever's going on. Other people are actually really interested in the motions put forward by councillors. And it's also an observation of mine that people, the general public, a lot of times complain about what council does do or doesn't do, yet they fail to attend council at all, whether online or in person, and everybody's like everybody from the LGA could be here. What wonderful that would be. We could hold it out in the car park. But it actually gives people an insight to what's going on. So it takes a half an hour or an hour of their life for something that actually impacts their lives 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I rather like the fact that and I mean, there's limited amounts of motions that we can get or that we do get. I mean, if we're lucky to sort of have one or two every meeting. For the people to sit there and listen to that and actually see how council works, I think is of great benefit. So to speak, whether they like it or not that you want to force an audience, but to me, it's a great education. They can then say, well, wow, I did attend it, I did see what goes on, and there were interesting points put forward here or there. I like this, I don't like that. So I rather like having it at the front. It's a short section in comparison to the rest of the council meeting, which extends for, hours, literally, after we've spent maybe a half an hour on motions. So I'm rather happy for it to stay where it is.
Thank you. Any further speakers on the amendment? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure if I'm speaking for or against the amendment, and that's based on a question that I'll have to the mover, Councillor Beasley. Now that we've got to where point one was the motion that I originally moved, so I'm happy with that. Philosophically, I would never stand in the way of anybody referring a matter to ARIC. I'm not sure that it needs a motion to refer a matter to ARIC, but I would say as a matter of principle, if any councillor feels there's an issue that they need to, whether I agree with it or not, if you have an issue that you feel you need to refer to ARIC, then you should do so. So I'm fine with part A. Part B and C presupposes the response from ARIC, and kind of it's you're presupposing that there was an issue when you're referring to ARIC to ask whether or not there was an issue. So if Councillor Beasley was prepared to delete parts B and C and deal with those after responses come back from ARIC, then I would be prepared to move the amendment. So I'll do that as a question, and then I'll decide whether I'm speaking for or against.
Councillor Miller, I'll just have a brief look at what you are suggesting. Thanks for the question, and I would be content to erase point C. I think point B is important because of what I stated before. we can only suppose might have happened at the time. There's something up for a formal public exhibition, but the document that then comes to council has somehow been changed. This is a situation that really none of us would think is tenable in any way. So I think B should stay in, but happy for C to go.
I've got a question for Councillor Beasley. I don't quite understand what B is intended to do, and I'm a little bit concerned that the way it's worded, it doesn't limit it basically says, while a formal public exhibition period is actually underway, it doesn't actually talk about a specific public exhibition period. It sort of says all of them, maybe. So help me understand exactly what you're intending to say, and just think about whether that is far too broad, accidentally too broad.
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
What are you trying to achieve by B? Because I don't fully understand what it is you're trying to achieve there.
It was what I just explained to Councillor Miller, that it would appear, and I'm not stating that I know what happened, but it seems that a document has gone out on public exhibition, and yet then that particular document the councillors vote on has been changed when it comes to the next meeting.
Okay, it says associated with proposing amendments to statutory documents. I'm not sure that we do amend statutory documents.
Question, therefore, to the Director of Corporate Services, through the Mayor then, please. What would one claim a code of meeting practice is? Is it a statutory document?
It is a statutory document, Councillor Beasley, and I guess for clarity, what Councillor Beasley is asking is around the process of when a document is produced, it goes on a public exhibition. If that document is changed while that document is on public exhibition and brought back in a changed form, what is the actual governance process around that is what he's asking.
Okay. I'm not sure, I'm not arguing against the sense of what I think you're trying to say. I just think the words are a bit confusing. But Councillor Miller, did you have a question?
Just trying to assist, Mayor. I think my original question to Councillor Beasley, I'm happy if the mover and seconder want to delete C. I'm happy to accept B as it is. B, my understanding of B as it's written is basically council should sit in the corner and think about what it's done. We have said an error happened. This is just asking that council evaluate the internal control frameworks essentially so it doesn't happen again, is my reading of B. That appears harmless to me and probably appropriate.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor. I think I've realised what I'm just looking for. Probably one word. Evaluate the governance risks and internal control frameworks associated with proposing amendments to statutory documents while that statutory document is on public exhibition.
Yeah.
Does that? Yeah, it tightens up.
Absolutely happy. Yes, indeed. It's more specific than my original amendment.
I was worried it was too broad, and I didn't think that's what you were intending. Yeah, please.
Councillors, without entering the debate, one ought to consider the term statutory documents because whilst the Code of Meeting Practice is a statutory document, there are numerous other statutory documents that essentially end up at council in a very different format to what they do when they go on public exhibition as a result of comments that occur on whilst they've been on public exhibition, as a result of information that's found whilst they're on public exhibition. There are numerous documents of that nature where errors are corrected. You've got our entire suite of IPNR documents. You've got land use planning documents where things are picked up and are slightly changed through that process. So that is a catch-all for every statutory document, of which there are many within this organisation that go through a similar process. Obviously, submission periods change and the like, but the construct is exactly the same. When something's on public exhibition, there are often changes made, often minor in nature, that results in the document coming back to council for adoption being different to that which was put on exhibition in the first instance.
And I think that's where my initial concerns arose, because we actually don't make changes while they're on public exhibition. We wait for the public exhibition period. We consider all of the things that need to be considered and then we change them.
Can I ask a question to the General Manager based on what you're I'm not debating you, so I'm asking it as a question. I suspect you might be overthinking it. My question, is it not clear, General Manager, that all this is asking us to do is evaluate the governance risk and internal frameworks? It doesn't say thou shalt not make any changes. It's saying review the internal control frameworks and the governance measures, i.e. if a change was to be made, that the governance and the control measures are there. So I think we probably shouldn't overthink that. So my question is whether there's a sufficient clarity there.
You're talking to me, not the GM, and that's fine. I accept what you're saying.
I was questioning the General Manager on a comment, but regardless.
I accept what you're saying. Shut up, Mayor, and just get on with it. That's fine. So we've agreed.
Yes,
Let me clarify this.
might I
Councillor
just-
Beasley, you've agreed to remove C.
Yes.
At the moment, A and B is there, and Councillor
Yes,
Wilson.
indeed. If the word "and" at the end of clause
Yes.
B, 2B, could be taken out, please.
What?
And bye-bye C.
And
C is C.
Councillor Mackenzie, you're happy with that? Yep. And Councillor Wilson, you're trying to speak or ask a question?
I'm trying to speak.
Please.
So this is now, because the mover and seconder have agreed to it, this is now the motion? Is that?
No,
I'm just
I've
trying
got to do that next bit.
Okay, so this is amendment.
So you can talk to this
Yeah.
amendment.
I think this is absolutely bonkers. I'm wondering what the hell people are thinking at home. I mean, this is, I don't know, word salad. It needs to be a simpler language so people can understand it. Basically, what I'm hearing is some errors occurred, so we're going to get Eric to go in there and find out this, why this has occurred. There is no evidence of a systemic failure. It is one small error. It's like trying to kill a mosquito with a sledgehammer. I think it's crazy.
I think probably I tend to agree, but there's no harm in asking Eric to look at it, and then Eric is free to reply however it wants to. Yeah, it is. Councillor Tickle, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm generally supportive, but I was the same mind of Councillor Wilson here, that I'd be more comfortable with the General Manager as soon as possible, that the General Manager, A and B, that he reviews internally what went on and reports back to council. I mean, it's just because all Eric's going to ask is, okay, fine, you've identified it, what have you done about it? And that's where it's going to go to. Well, what are you going to do? You let councils know? I think it's an overkill to go to Eric when it's an operational matter for the General Manager to deal with and report back to council.
So councillors, that process has already started. And it's also important to note that this process that we're referring to and the areas we're referring to are in relation to a code of meeting practice that was rescinded at the last meeting, so it no longer exists.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, Councillor O'Keefe.
Half an hour ago, this was described by at least two councillors as a rubber stamp. Have we got enough to put this amendment yet?
When everybody's finished asking their questions and making up their mind.
I think Councillor O'Keefe might be moving that the motion be put.
No, well, he hasn't done that.
I'm moving that the motion be put.
Okay, in which case I need to go back to Councillor Beasley. You've got a right to reply.
The reason that so much time is being spent on this is because of something that the councillors weren't aware of that took place sometime between the council workshop on the 26th of November and the 10th of December at that particular meeting. It was not described sufficiently well enough or accurately enough by the General Manager in the workshop at the time, and the end result of the change of the order was most definitely not understood by me. We, at this stage, we don't need to go to the public exhibition. We've got a code of meeting practice which we are using today, and things seem to be okay, and the sky hasn't fallen. And we changed the order so that those people who wanted to listen to the earlier DA got a chance to. They're gone, and things are fine. However, now this motion wishes to send it out to public exhibition, and then there will be a further one once we receive a new model code of meeting practice. So, of course, what I've just said then actually is against the whole motion. Nevertheless,
Yes, you are talking against
that
your
is
own motion.
indeed my position. I just simply don't think that should happen. However, it's the way it is.
Okay, so the next step is for me to put the amendment. So all those in favour of this amendment here need to raise your hand. Okay, and those against? So 2 councillors voted against, 3. And, okay, Councillor O'Keefe, did I get that right? Everybody's done the right thing, in which case the amendment becomes the motion, and anyone who didn't speak on the original motion can now speak. Councillor Howard, you'd like to speak?
I move the motion be put.
No, you can't do that. Sorry. I'm hoping there's no further speaking. No, Councillor Miller wants to speak.
I haven't spoken on the amendment, Mayor, and I just want to briefly pick up on a couple of points that Councillor Beasley has said, which was that a change was made without councillors being aware. That's patently untrue. There were workshop and the information was published. It was discussed at a workshop. It was published in the business paper. If a councillor doesn't notice it, that is not evidence that information was not given. I think it's a really important point to make.
It is, because I remember it very, very clearly. All right. In that case, is everybody happy for me to put this motion?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favour? Right. You need to be clear about your hand. Thank you, because the minute takers actually record names.
sorry.
So don't be coy. Councillor O'Keefe is voting. All right. Thank you. And those against are 3 councillors. You're right there. Councillor Wilson, Beasley and Mackenzie. So it is, it's carried as it was printed.
I don't understand.
All right.
Yes.
Now we can go to item 17.1. So, yes, Executive Manager, please.
Thank you.
Councillors, please.
This development application seeks consent to approve permanent residential use of 2 existing tourist accommodation units at Diamond Beach, and the report is before council as it includes a variation of more than 10% to the Greater Taree LEP.
Thank you. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Turnbull.
I move that the development application DA 2025/0253 for the permanent residential occupation of 2 existing units at lots 2 and 3 DP 286697 and 2 and 4 Wales Parade, Diamond Beach be approved subject to the conditions contained in attachment 1.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Howard. Councillor Turnbull. No? Councillor Howard. No. Anyone wish to speak to this? Councillor Miller.
I had a question through the Acting General Manager to the Executive Manager. I think I called Director earlier. Sorry about that. Part of the issue here is that pushes the tourist zone above the 30% of the gross floor area. What future building is expected on the site, and what would that do to the percentage of permanent residences? What I'm trying to get to is it's well above the 30% now, but what happens over a period of time is our expectation.
If you're referring to the subject site, the building's already there.
No, because it talks about the 30% in the zone. So the requirement in the zone to be 30% of gross floor area. We've now blown well out of 30% if this is approved, but are we expecting other developments that might redress that balance over time?
Sorry.
Councillor Tickle.
Sorry, I thought you were talking to me.
No, Councillor Tickle.
We might receive further applications, but the report does demonstrate how we would go through a future assessment. So a future applicant could come in and try and use clause 4.6, and then we would follow the same methodology as what we did in this proposal. The things that we looked at include whether tourist accommodation remains the dominant use, and at some point it may not. Council, we'd require clear calculations at that time. We'd have to confirm the facilities exist and are able to still continue to support the tourist development. And we'd require evidence such as incident history, staffing resources around the whole employment piece. It'd still need to address clause 4.6 variation requirements under the LEP. And then we would consider making sure that we followed all of this so that we didn't set an unnecessary precedent.
So I might need to clarify my question. Thank you,
Yep.
Executive Manager. What I'm trying to get to is it's one thing, so it takes us to call it 45%.
Yes.
If we're saying, but there's another 4 blocks that we're expecting development, which would push the overall back down towards 30%, or it's built out and we think it's going to stay at 45% forever is kind of what I'm trying to get to.
Yep.
If we don't know what future development looks like, that's okay. But I'm just asking if we have any idea.
Just a comment, Councillor Miller. I think if you cast your mind back, this area has been hotly contested around whether it actually converts entirely to a residential zone. And I guess in the future, that's a broader consideration than around the use of the current clauses within the Greater Taree LEP and what will be carried forward into the new LEP. At some point in time, the area at North Diamond Beach will need to be looked at in relation to whether or not it becomes overall residential zone or whether it doesn't. That's a matter that still exists within our housing strategy. It was first tabled many, many years ago. So I think there's a broader strategic planning issue that ought to be considered in that context.
Thank you. Not quite what I asked, but that's okay. My other question is that the report requires a register of tourist and residential occupation, given that the zone is about use, not which is what the register is about, for occupation in Area 2. Practically, how does a register of tourist and residential occupation work? Is this something we can point to that we've worked successfully in other areas, or is this a new idea? How does that register operate?
I'm not aware that we have used it in other areas as yet, unless Paul can talk to that. But the report identifies under monitoring of residential and tourist accommodation about how this would work, and there's conditions of consent that's imposed in order to address this. So to address it, the recommended consent requires written evidence to council that the relevant community neighbourhood management statement and bylaws have been validly amended and registered.
Sure. Sorry, just for clarity, I've read the report. So my question is, we're setting up a register. Is it, if I'm a landowner, do I then fill out it's been used? Is it a stat deck I have to fill out? So just practically is what I'm concerned is, are we setting up a workable mechanism is my question.
Well, I hope we are. I'll make out the point that it's not for council to keep track of this and to hold the register. So the condition and the intent is requiring the community group in order to keep that register and provide a copy to us every 12 months once it's updated. Yeah, that may not be bulletproof, but it's certainly the best that we could put in place with a difficult clause.
Okay. Councillor Wilson.
I've just some questions, Mayor, through the General Manager to the Executive Director. Sorry, no, I'm joking. Executive Manager for Sustainable Development. How long's the tourist zone been around?
I'll answer that question, Councillor Wilson. It was made as part of the Greater Taree LEP 2010, so it's been around for some time. There is tourist zonings also within the Great Lakes LEP 2014. There is not a tourist zone in the current Gloucester Local Environmental Plan, which is also 2010. So 2 of the 3 have tourism zones in it. In terms of development within the tourism zones, largely they are undeveloped, certainly within the Great Lakes LEP. And within the Greater Taree LEP, there's 2 areas, the North Diamond Beach area, 3 areas, sorry, North Diamond Beach, an area at Diamond Beach, and then another area at Old Bar. And essentially 2 of those 3 have been developed, albeit one of them will change in the new LEP to be a complete residential zone.
Okay, so very few of them.
That's correct.
Okay, so what's the purpose of a tourist zone? What's its benefits? Why do it?
The original intent under the Greater Taree LEP was to try and, I guess, spurn tourism specifically, but what the development industry has found is very, very difficult to do that because of the restrictions. It's very, very hard to get finance to build tourism accommodation of that nature because you don't have permanent occupancy. So it's really quite difficult to get the capital to develop these zones.
Yeah, and why would you when you can Airbnb?
Correct.
So if people can have an Airbnb in a residential area, but you can't have residential in a tourist area. Is that if it doesn't?
Largely, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. And how is a 30% restriction chosen? Why isn't it 50%?
Oh, I can't answer that. I wasn't around in 2010.
Right. Okay, all right. So we've got few tourist zones. The purpose is outdated, and we're not sure why the percentage is there anyway. And really look on in the scheme of things, we have Airbnb and other opportunities for tourists to find accommodation here. Okay, thank you.
I didn't want to interrupt, but we just need to note that both Councillor Miller and Graham have left the room. Who else wants to? Councillor Irving?
This is a question for the Sustainable Development Manager. So in the reporter, it mentions that the owner of 2-4 Wales Parade, Darling Beach, will be required to pay a developer's contribution fee. Is this correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
And Councillor Graham's returned to the room. Someone else had their arm up. Councillor Beasley.
I, of course, have some questions for the Executive Manager through the Acting General Manager, and these are going to be real newbie questions. Could you explain to me, please, the way this land is owned? Is this community land or is it freehold land?
I'll answer that. Councillor Beasley, the land's in a community title scheme. So a community title scheme is a combination essentially of a strata-style development and a Torrens title-style development. So what that means is you own the lot, but you would form part of a community situation. So you've got common infrastructure, common roads, and an association, but you still own title to the land on which your dwelling's on.
Okay. And further question, would this sort of land title alter the value of the land itself?
I don't believe so, Councillor Beasley. If you look at large tracts of tea gardens, for example, in fact, virtually all of the Mile Keys area is under community title, and anyone who drives around Mile Keys, you wouldn't know the difference from a standard residential subdivision, but there is community property involved in that, and that's been there now for many, many years, and it's been quite successful. There is no discernible difference in land value in that area. I think the issue with North Diamond Beach gets to the zoning and the use as opposed to the title under which it's held.
Indeed. So, further question, therefore, as we don't keep a register, that means that anyone could be living there at the moment. I mean, I think that's quite clearly claimed here. We're not snooping around, following people anywhere. So people may well be living in these zone tourist units or houses that are there. So I'm wondering, therefore, this is the question: what would be the point in actually going through this whole process? This seems quite expensive and time-consuming. Could someone suggest a reason for bothering to do this?
I would imagine the owner would want a lawful use, and there would be a number of benefits to that, including council not taking compliance action.
Okay. Might I just speak now to it? I can only imagine that this particular DA, and I'm guessing here, of course, I hope I've asked enough relevant questions about it. We are really, a council is at arm's length with this whole development. It seemed like a good idea at the time, which of course has always been the Streaker's defence. Tari at least thought it was a terrific idea to bolster tourism in the area, and it probably was, at least for a period of time, a good idea. It, as has been mentioned, Airbnb, it just makes this rather pointless. My opinion about this is that if we were going to do this, then it would be preferable to treat the whole area as one. If we're going to essentially disregard the 30% to such a level that we will, if we agree to this, then we may as well just go whole hog. As one of the submissions said, well, how do I do this? So I mean, the risks that are stated here, precedent risk, of course, we've got strategic evidence, precedent, governance, tourism and economic risk. I mean, most certainly precedents. One would think if we pass this today, everyone who wanted to do this for whatever reason, and possibly that brings up in my mind a reason, and that might be, could I ask this question, therefore, of the executive manager, would the sale of a property like this be greater if it were zoned residential as opposed to tourism? I'm asking for an opinion, of course.
Just to clarify, the purpose of this report is not to change the zoning of the land.
I'm sorry, yes, indeed. The usage?
Change the use.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess a lot of your comments relate to the comment I made to Councillor Miller earlier, whereby this area has been identified strategically for a number of years. There's been lots of conversations with the community. There was a planning proposal lodged to convert it to purely residential land. That essentially had a history within council and also a history at the Joint Regional Planning Panel, where ultimately it was knocked back. There is part of this land, there is a planning proposal or a recommendation for a planning proposal to be lodged over part of it as part of a previous recommendation and resolution of council. And as I said before, there is a broader strategic, I guess, decision that needs to be made and a strategic look at this piece of land in terms of its future long-term use as to whether or not it ought to remain as a tourism zone or be converted to a complete residential zone. That's something that the land use planning team have been looking at a number of years, and I'm sure it will be addressed at some point in time once the Mid-Coast Local Environmental Plan gets finally gazetted by the state government. So I think a lot of the concerns you're raising, Councillor Mosley, will be addressed in the fullness of time.
Thank you. Okay. Because of that, because of the claimed imminent arrival of our draft LEP, my preference is to have the whole area dealt with in one. We're going to end up, if we agree to this, in my opinion, with the risks that are noted in the report, and I would really like the whole area dealt with in one and done. And it makes a whole lot of sense considering the history, which is now history, but and times have moved on and tourism usage has changed, that we could effect change across the whole area in one fell swoop and not therefore have to deal with possibly more claims similar to this in the nearest future.
Thank you. I just need to ask a question, though, because I didn't think that was within our capabilities at this stage. We're just trying to deal with two. Or is it?
No, it needs to be discussed separately. All you can deal with before you is the application at hand. So you either choose to approve that, as is the recommendation, or to refuse it. The entire area has to be dealt with by a completely separate process. It can't be dealt with under this application.
You all right with that? And I've got to go now to Councillor Tickle.
Thank you, Mayor. Question, first of all, through the Acting General Manager to the Executive Leader, Sustainable Development. Following up a question that Councillor Irving asked, she made reference to developer contributions. I guess the more relevant question before I speak is that why is the developer contribution when there's already dwellings being built? That's really changing the use, not so much redeveloping.
The application stage one provided for the tourist accommodation, which didn't levy contributions under the then Halliday's Point plan. And now we're under the Taree one, and now we're going for permanent occupancy. And so therefore you pay contributions now.
Understood. But speaking to the motion, look, the relevance of the 30% tourism zone, at the time when you're looking 2010, we had an issue where there was caravans were very quickly being used as permanent residences. They would have a built annex that was causing some social issues in various communities where there was proliferation of caravans, annexes, people staying there permanently. And to get some controls and identifying what ought to be a tourist zone, let's put some controls in place where, look, you got to have no more than 30% for permanent residential purposes, so that you're true to the tourism zone. And we saw a similar issue with the Dawson River Caravan Park in history. There was applications for some permanents. Well, no, you can restrict it to 30% only. The rest has got to be for tourism. And that was the consistent reason for what was happening at the time. And as pointed out by Councillor Beasley and others, since that time, things have changed where there's actually a shortage around here of accommodation because of what would ordinarily be permanent residences using Airbnb, having short stays themselves and Airbnb it the rest of the time. So the tourism really has spread out to areas that ordinarily would have been either permanent rentals or permanent residences. We've seen a change since what was in place in 2010. So what's the impact of this variation? It might seem a lot going from 30% to 44%. We're talking about 2 dwellings. It's insignificant in the overall scheme of things, particularly when you look at on a weighted average. We're seeing the Redhead Caravan Park, the Big Four, not that far away. That's got a tourism yield. Also in combination with permanents. So the landscape has changed since 2010, which means we need to have a pragmatic approach in how we deal with matters on a merit basis, and this is one of those. And I believe that it is in the public interest to approve this because it's providing 2 extra dwellings. And when it's all said and done, those dwellings, for all intents and purposes, could also be handed over for part tourism use through Airbnb. So it ought to be approved. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Does anyone want to speak against the motion? No. I'm going to put the motion. All in favour? And against? So you voted for, and against was Councillor Beasley. Okay. Terrific. So the motion is carried. All right. I need to take a comfort break, which means I think I need to postpone. I can just ask for a 2 or 3 minutes adjournment, I think. Can I do that?
Yep.
Thank you. I'll be back tomorrow. I need a seconder. Councillor Miller, thank you. And all in favour? Thank you. Couple of minutes. 10.3. Could you please introduce it? Hey guys, we're still in the middle of a council meeting and we're being broadcast, so behave yourselves.
Item 17.3. So this application seeks consent to relocate and raise an existing dwelling, undertake alterations and additions to that dwelling and construct a second detached dwelling resulting in a dual occupancy. The matter's before council because there is a proposed separation of the two dwellings exceeding the proximity requirements under the Greater Taree LEP by more than 10%.
Thank you. Move it, please. Councillor Miller.
I move the development application DA 2026-0286 to relocate and raise the existing dwelling, undertake alterations and additions to that dwelling, and construct a second detached dwelling resulting in a detached dual occupancy at 50 Newby Road, Pampoola. Be approved subject to the conditions contained in attachment 1. I don't wish to speak to it.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Wilson. Did you wish to speak to it? Anyone wish to speak to this one? Councillor Tickle.
Question, if I may, Mayor, through the Acting General Manager to the Executive Manager Sustainable Development. What is the relationship with, in reference in the report, 7.78 AHD and 6.72 AHD with respect to the 1 in 500 maximum surge probability?
So the site was inundated to a level of 4.18 AHD in the 2025 1 in 500 flood event. And the applicants proposed a new finished floor level that is 1.38 metres higher than the probable maximum flood level planning. And the proposed finished floor level as a result is 3.6 metres above that 1 in 500 flood event. So considerably higher than it needs to be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I will note that Councillor Howard and Councillor Mackenzie haven't yet rejoined us. Any more on this? Councillor Beasley?
Just noting that the variation is large. It's on a big block of ground. It's zoned RU1 and it's doing something which these people quite obviously need to do. I trust that they won't be affected by floods in the future and most definitely will be supporting this.
Thank you. Anything else? Excuse me. No, I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's everybody present. We've got 2 councillors. I think it's only 2, absent. So it's carried. All right, moving to item 17.4, which is the Wingham Urban Release Area.
Yes, 17.4. Following committee consultation, this report seeks council's approval to submit a planning proposal known as Wingham Urban Release Area 1 to the Department of Planning, Housing and Infrastructure and requests the department to make the plan. The report also seeks support to finalise a draft planning agreement associated with the planning proposal.
Thank you. Move it, please. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the planning proposal for the Wingham Urban Release, I'll get there, Urban Release Area 1, Attachment 1, be referred to the New South Wales Department of Planning, Housing and Infrastructure, requesting that the department make the plan. Number 2, the General Manager finalise the draft plan agreement, Attachment 2, have the proponent register the planning agreement on the land and include the planning agreement on council's planning agreement register.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Tickle. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Wilson?
Just quickly, look, this land has been earmarked for urban expansion for about 2 decades now. The proposal now before us protects the creek corridor, delivers a footpath link, funds essential sewer works through a properly structured VPA. Community concerns about flooding and the character have been examined and on the expert advice of council are manageable. It is time to send the plan to the department and let the detailed subdivision process do the rest of the work.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Beasley.
Just a couple of questions, if I may, to the Executive Manager through the Acting General Manager. Firstly, to your knowledge, was there a reduction In the size of the blocks, when there was a reduced residential footprint, as happened at some stage during this whole process?
Sorry, for clarification, do you mean in the ultimate lot sizes, individual lot sizes, a reduction in those?
Yes, indeed. From what would have been the plan, which had a larger residential footprint previously.
There's a range of densities proposed within the planning proposal, and it won't be until the later stages of development that it's determined exactly what those lot sizes are. So maybe not, yeah. But it won't be directly as a result of that. Okay, and further question, which I could probably find if I look closely enough. Do you know when the flood impact and assessment report was conducted? Was it essentially pre or post May 2025 flood? I would have to check, but I know that there is reference to the 2025 flood event. So there's definitely reference to it, and it's been addressed at the central flood report. I would have to check.
Okay.
I'll just speak to it
yes, please.
While the executive manager is looking up that piece of information.
Page 84, Councillor Beasley. It's referenced there.
Thank you.
Under the section titled Flooding, Stormwater and Drainage, the report considered the most recent flooding information of August 2025. Consider the proposal has been an acceptable level of flood risk, ensuring all new residential subdivision is above the 0.01% AEP. So that's considered and outlined in the report.
Thank you. And I'm guessing there must be some work, so I'm speaking now to it. I'm guessing there must be some serious amount of earth moving taking place, because looking at a picture which is included in the attachments on page 1746, it does show that 5% AEP and 1% AEP floods do impact the residential footprint. So I can only presume that because, of course, the 0.5% AEP, which we've just endured, must have been taken into account, there would be therefore significant earthworks that would need to take place to protect this whole area. The reason that I asked the question about the size of the blocks was because that was a concern by at least some of those people who submitted to the public exhibition. They felt that the blocks are quite small, and I agree and disagree with that. Of course, whatever block size it is and houses put on, it will get people into houses. However, it does cut down on the amount of size for families, and I think when looking at further proposals like this, it's something that I'm sure council must take into account, that we want to get more affordable housing, but at the same time we also want to make these places amenable for people to enjoy them.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this? No, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. That's everybody present, noting that Councillor Mackenzie has returned, but Councillor Howard has not yet. So that motion is carried. Move to 17.5, which is the Old Bar Manning Point Coastal Management Program. Executive Manager.
The Coastal Management Program was certified by the Minister on the 25th of June 2026, and the Coastal Management Program was certified. Sorry, I said that again. The report notes those minor changes to address certification requirements.
Thank you. Mover, please. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the council note the minor amendments to the adopted Old Bar Manning Point Coastal Management Program to address certification requirements.
Thank you. And a seconder. Councillor Turnbull. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, as it says in the report, what those minor amendments are. For example, changing Crown land funds to Crown land resources. I mean, these are very minor amendments. It doesn't change anything in the meaning or the operation of the Coastal Management Program. What is great is that after a lot of work by council staff, various state agencies and a lot of members of the community who are on the Coastal Management Plan reference group, is that this plan has now been certified by the Minister, which is fantastic. So the job is now done, and there is now a coastal management program for that area of coast, from Old Bard, Manning Point, just to south of Crowdy. And it was good to see that the Minister, in sending us a letter about that certification, included a congratulations, which is worth reading out. It's in the report. The Minister says, "I congratulate Council for achieving certification and recognise the significant efforts made in coordinating an all-of-government approach to coastal management. The CMP will be an important document to guide Council and other stakeholders in managing the Old Bar and Manning Point coastline. I particularly commend you for adopting a strategic approach of managed retreat for the Old Bar Manning Point CMP, noting this is the first CMP certified in New South Wales to take that approach." So it was great to hear that from the Minister, and as a reflection on the work, as I said, of Council staff, the various state government agencies and federal agencies that worked with us on this, but also the community group that gave their time and expertise to the reference group. And so we thank them for that.
Indeed. Anyone else? No, I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's everybody. Thank you. Carried. 17.6 is the Open Coastal Management Program Community Reference Group meeting notes.
Thank you, Mayor. This report provides the Open Coast Management Program Community Reference Group meeting minutes from the 15th of June.
Thank you. Mover, please. Councillor Irving.
I move that Council note the meeting notes from the Open Coast Coastal Management Program Community Reference Group meeting.
Seconder. Councillor Wilson. Anyone wish to speak to it? No. Yes, Councillor Wilson.
Let's don't move on.
No, don't start wasting our time. All in favour? Thank you. That's everybody. 17.7. Yep. Is the development determinations May and June 2026, noting that Councillor Miller has left the room due to a conflict that he declared earlier. Executive Director.
Yes, this report outlines development determinations issued during May and June 2026.
Thank you. Mover, please. Councillor Graham.
I'll move the report be noted.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Irving. Any debate? Put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. That's everybody, excluding Councillor Miller. If we could get him back in, please. So it's carried. Moving to 18.1, which is the Public Spaces and Sustainable Development Monthly Project Status Report. Executive Manager, Public Spaces.
Thank you, Mayor. This report provides an update on the delivery status of key projects across public spaces and sustainable development executive management areas, including any emerging issues relating to project schedule, cost or delivery impacts. As at the 30th of June, a total of 38 projects were underway, with 4 projects completed during the reporting period.
Thank you. Mover. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the Public Space and Sustainable Development Monthly Project Status Report be noted.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Tickle. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Wilson?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Tickle. Anyone? Councillor Miller.
2 questions, if I may, through the Acting General Manager to the Executive Manager of Public Spaces. The first is the solar installations at the Great Lakes and the Manning Aquatic Leisure Centre. The attachment says the MALC is complete and the Great Lakes is just waiting on an invoice. Are we pretty much at completion? We should see completion in the next month's report?
Through the General Manager, that's correct.
Excellent, thank you. And the other one, which I couldn't see since the March meeting, is the Muldoon Street contamination cleanup. If we can get an update on where that project's up to?
Yes, certainly, through the General Manager. There is information against that project in the waste attachment as an attachment to the report. So it hasn't had a change in status since March. But what I can say is that since we last provided an update in March, we've been out to tender. 4 submissions were received, and we'll report the outcome of that tender process to the August Ordinary Council meeting.
Anyone else? No. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Yeah, everybody. Thank you. Going to 18.2, which is the Northern Gateway Transport Hub Master Plan. Executive Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This report recommends endorsement of the Northern Gateway Transport Hub Master Plan, which provides a strategic framework to guide future transport, logistics and employment generating development within the precinct, while complementing the recently endorsed Taree Regional Airport Strategic Plan.
Thank you. Move it, please. Councillor Tickle.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council notes the information contained within this report. Point 2 endorses the Northern Gateway. My screen just disappeared. Endorses the Northern Gateway Transport Hub Master Plan.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Miller. Councillor Tickle.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Miller.
This is an important and huge piece of work that's taken a number of years because it's a complicated piece of work. We were talking about the Northern Gateway Transport Hub Master Plan quite some time ago, and it became apparent that we needed to separate out the airport plan. We then, council approved the airport plan at the May meeting, and so it's appropriate now that we come back and finish off the rest of it. But there's no changes apparent besides the stripping out of the airport in what I could see in the report. So this is a huge potential for the area in terms of industry and freight and business opportunities for the area. Of course, now we need to seek funding to enact any of it, but the first thing is to have a plan, and this is an exciting plan for the region.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Beasley.
I sent through a question to the Executive Manager via email, which I've not received a response to, so I'll ask it here in the meeting through the Acting General Manager to the Executive Manager. One of the submissions is from a person who claims to be a landowner somewhere within this transport hub, and is stating that it now seems to be uneconomical for any developer to proceed. So I'm wondering whether the Executive Manager has a comment about that. I think that this is this is meant to be an economic zone, is it not?
Yeah, through the Acting General Manager, absolutely. Supporting local economic development is a key driver of the master plan. Through the public exhibition period, we only received 5 submissions, and a majority of those were supportive or provided general feedback. I guess that's the opinion of that person at that point in time, noting that this project has been parked up for a little while. Since that time, we've seen really significant development of the Pearson Transport Hub, and there's also been significant interest in potential development opportunities around the airport. So I would suggest that whilst this person doesn't feel it's economically viable, other potential developers would.
A further question to either the Executive Manager or possibly to the Director of Infrastructure and Engineering Services, which is in relation to the cost of the road construction that would need to be done by these private landowners. Could you provide an estimate, say, of what landowners would be looking at, and would there be much difference because of, say, the conditions or the length of road that might need to be constructed?
I'll take this one. Through the Acting General Manager, there's no additional road infrastructure that's required to support the implementation of the master plan as put. The connection of the construction of the existing section of the bypass, and which is referred to as Gindle Way, I think, and a stub road at the constructed roundabout provides access along with Emmerton Drive provides access to those development sites, noting there are only 5 sites that would be, able to develop as a result of this master plan.
And could the Executive Manager, as I say, provide an estimate of what each landowner might have to stump up for to connect to these roads?
Through the Acting General Manager, no, the connection is there at the moment, so they would have to through planning, statutory approvals and the like, they would need to determine what they need to do within their own sites to connect to that existing public infrastructure.
The same as any other private development. The opportunity has been created for landowners there, for all landowners to develop their land based on the constraints of the land. It's now up to each landowner to develop it as they see fit. And obviously, when you develop your own land, you've got to foot the costs.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Mackenzie?
Through the GM to the appropriate manager. I note here it says that land will be dependent upon master planning related to the public council land will be dependent upon council's available resources and securing external funding to deliver works. Grant funding, who are we suggesting that funding needs to come from?
Councillor Mackenzie, one of the landowners within this precinct is council. We have a reasonably large tract of land there that is able to be developed. The purpose identified in the current LEP and the draft LEP. So it's a matter of how council funds any development of its own land. So we will look for essentially economic development funding to actually kick off some economic development on our own land.
So we're looking, what I'm asking, are we looking for funds from state government?
We will look from funds for state government and the federal government in the first instance. We haven't broached the issue of joint ventures at this point in time, but that is possible as well. In the first instance, we would look to the state and the federal government for seed funding for economic development purposes on our land.
Right. Just as a side note, as an informative for everybody here, I did speak to people from the State Roads Authority who were in fact doing some work up in the Paul Macquarie Hastings Council area, and it was identified that they needed to do works on large sections of the Oxley Highway, and they ended up doing some patching here and there. And when I asked the reason why they had changed it to only patching, they said, we don't have any money to do any roadworks. So just as an informative piece there.
Anyone else? No? Put the motion. All in favour? You're not voting, Councillor Mackenzie? You are? Thank you. That's everybody. Motion's carried. Moving to 18.3, which is recurrent funding outcomes update. Executive Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This report provides an overview of how recurrent funding and rate subsidies were used by eligible organisations during the 2025-26 financial year. It demonstrates that this program has helped deliver a range of community benefits across the Mid-Coast region.
Thank you. Move it, please. Councillor Wilson, thank you very much.
I move that the information in the recurrent funding donations outcome update report be noted.
Nice, easy one too. Councillor Graham. Does anyone wish to speak to it? No, I'll put the motion up. So, two quick questions or speaking?
Question, please.
Question.
Which I have sent through a question to the Executive Manager through the General Manager. The total cost isn't listed in the report. Do we know the total cost? But there's no costs listed in the report. Do we know the total cost of the funding and the rate subsidies?
Through the General Manager, we do. So the total value of the recurrent funding program last financial year was approximately $105,000, with just over $60,000 against recurrent fixed donations and the balance approximately $45,000 against rate subsidies.
Thank you.
Could I just ask that that be included in future of these reports? Thank you.
Good idea. Anything else? No, I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's everybody. Carried. 18.4 is the small donations program update. Executive Director.
Thank you, Mayor. This report presents a summary of small donations program applications received between 1 January and 30 June 2026. The program supports eligible organisations and community-based groups through provisions of donations up to $250 to deliver tangible community benefits aligned with the priorities of the Community Strategic Plan.
Thank you. Mover, Councillor Howard.
Yes, I move that the information in the small donations program update report be noted.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Turnbull. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, just briefly to say council's Pleased to be able to support these small donations. It's only a total of $1,250 here. 5 lots of $250 to Gloucester Basketball Association, Killabark Community Association, Johns River Community Hall Committee, Marley Hall and Progress Association Incorporated, and the Wingham Netball Club. However, I would say that it's becoming more difficult for council to continue this program, and I would encourage, of course, all organisations to, instead of relying on council for matters like this, to be seeking outside funding and looking at doing their own fundraising.
Yeah. Anyone else? Councillor Tickle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to speak against the motion to the extent that hoping the mover and seconder might accept an amendment, or otherwise I will move an amendment. So the motion as it reads stays. My concern, I'll speak first before I move the amendment. My concern, and Councillor Howard alluded to it, there's a lot of work involved to come up with $250 here and there for community groups. And when I look at those small amounts and capacity, I question, is there not capacity for those organisations to seek other funding or fundraise? For example, I know that service clubs get requests for donations, and they do support other organisations such as this. There's a lot of money handed out at changeovers for various service organisations. Years back, some would have a Leamington drive or car washing, or let's put a hand up for Bunnings barbecue. But it's not just the fact that there's $250 here and there. It's not a set program. They come up at any time. Staff have got to do the assessment, bring councillors in to also look over the assessment, put this report out. There's a lot of work involved over and above the $250 that's been paid out, and I question, as Councillor Howard has done, whether or not these organisations ought not be relying on council for that sort of money and should have a bit of a go themselves. So for that reason, I'm proposing an amendment, which may or may not be accepted by the mover and second, otherwise I'll put it up as an amendment. So the first part of the motion stays as it is. The second part is that the methodology in providing financial support for small organisations and communities be listed for discussion at a council strategic workshop.
I accept the amendment.
Councillor Turnbull. Okay. All right.
Thank you. Yes. So I'll go slow. The methodology in providing financial support for small organisations and communities be listed for discussion at a council strategic workshop.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Tickle for bringing that amendment. I think that is a worthwhile thing to discuss. It's about having the appropriate oversight to the size of the investment. So I don't necessarily back that we shouldn't be doing this type of funding, and that people should, people should look for other options. But if we lost this opportunity for these small donations, then we have no mechanism, council has no mechanism to help the small donations. Anything above $1,000 or so can go to the donations pool, but these are often small considerations. And the one that jumps out to me is the Johns River Community Hall Committee. Because every time we go there for a community conversation, the committee tells us how proud they are of the work they do in maintaining the public toilets and the people that pull off the highway, because the public toilets at Johns River Community Hall is known as a good toilet to pull over and use because it's always clean. Now, it's always clean and it's nicely maintained because the whole committee does it. And every time we go out there, they say, look, we're putting all this work in, we're happy to do it, we're proud of our community, but can you just help with some toilet paper, or can you just help with a bit of hand soap? And that's all the help that they're looking for. So they're really proud, and they do a fantastic job all year round, particularly in those peak holiday periods. And I think it's great the council is able to say to groups like that, you just need a little bit of help and we're happy to provide it. So I would certainly advocate that this funding continues, but the intent of Councillor Tickle's amendment or change in the motion, I absolutely back, because what you don't want to do for a small amount of funding is have a huge governance oversight that costs more than the money that's going out the door. That would be silly. So I absolutely back the amendment.
Yeah, I'd like to comment too that one of them, the Killabark Community Association, is actually asking for a small seed funding so they actually can run a fundraiser so that they can then put money into maintenance of the hall, which is something we obviously support. So I agree with Councillor Miller that I think it's important given the small amounts of money we're talking about here, but happy to have it discussed at a workshop. Anything else? No, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. It's carried. Moving to 19.1, which is tender for the reservoir renewal package. Director.
Thank you, Mayor. This report provides the outcomes of the tender process that we've conducted to engage a contractor to undertake design and construction of renewals, particularly for 3 smaller steel reservoirs that we have at Harrington, Cranback and Wingham. That includes recoating and replacement of various elements around the structures, as well as some additional repairs as they're identified.
Thank you. Mover, please. Councillor Howard.
Yes, I move that Council 1 award the contract for the design and construction of Reservoir Renewal Package 01 to McElligot's, New South Wales Proprietary Limited. I just wanted to say that word. 2, delegate authority to the General Manager to execute any required contract documents.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Graham. Do you wish to speak to us?
Only to say that it's great that Council's, obviously being proactive with this in ensuring that our water reservoirs are well maintained, to ensure that our stellar water quality index in the Mid-Coast area is maintained.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Miller.
Just to quickly note, and yes, I will be voting for the motion, but to quickly note that the initial budget for the project was $3.1 million, and we're now approving a project budget of $5.6 million, or the contract is awarded to the budget of $5.6 million. Now, we're seeing a lot of contracts when we go out to the market. It costs a bit more than we thought it did for very reasonable reasons, many of which related to a war on the other side of the world, which is having real repercussions on the ground in many ways for organisations such as ours and households as well. But it is something we do need to look at as we do our projected budgets, so that we do often go to market and find it costs a bit more than we thought. It is just something to note when it happens and to think about how we better project our budgets in the first place. But I'm very happy to support this project.
Anyone else?
Through the Mayor, I would add that there is some additional work in that associated with upgrading some of the security fencing, particularly to Cranback from a cattle fence to a person or man-proof fence. Also some encapsulation of the surface coating during treatment at one of the reservoirs, and some replacements of one of the walkways. So there is some market response impact in that, increasing the cost, but there's also some additional scope of work that was added to the to what was purely previously a renewal.
Thank you. Councillor Beasley? Okay, good. Anything else? Councillor Howard?
Yes, only just to the Director through the General Manager. Mr. Scott, the change from a cattle-proof fence to a person-proof fence, is that a terrorism measure or a security measure, or what are we doing there?
It's simply a security measure. Most of our sites do have access or man-proof access to the compound itself, as well as climbing restrictions on allowing people up to the heights. Obviously, working at heights, there's some restraint or safety issues associated with that, as well as just the proximity to our infrastructure. So it's a bit twofold from a safety and a security point of view and a water quality point of view.
Thank you. Nothing more? Put the motion. All in favour? I think that's everybody. Yep. Carried. Going to 19.2, tender for water and sewer services construction works delivery panel.
Thank you, Mayor. This report provides the outcomes of the tender process that we undertook to engage a panel of contractors to carry out renewals of water and sewer network pipelines associated with delivery of our services for the period that's involved in the contract.
Thank you. Mover, please. Councillor Graham.
I move that council delegate authority to the general manager to engage the panel of contractors listed in table 1 within the report and to execute any required contract documents.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Miller. Anyone wish to speak to it? No, I'll put the motion. All in favour? So everybody is carried. 19.3 is another tender for Kaiwarrick Off-River Water Storage Project Design Services.
Thank you, Mayor. This report provides the outcome of the tender process we undertook to engage a consultant to undertake the detailed design of the proposed Kaiwarrick Off-River Water Storage Scheme. That process involves undertaking extensive geotechnical investigation, developing the design for both the dam wall and all of the ancillary structures that will go into providing that piece of infrastructure. It will also give us a firm scope of works which will enable better estimation and a more accurate projection of future costs.
Thank you. Mover. Councillor Tickle.
Mayor, I move that Council.1 award the contract, the Kaiwarrick Off-Water Storage Scheme Design Services to SMEC following satisfactory negotiation of the contract terms and conditions in accordance with the tender specification and submission. Point 2, delegate authority to the General Manager to execute required contract documents.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Miller. Councillor Tickle.
Thank you, Mayor. It's another step along the way for this important project to at least get it in a position of being shovel ready to negotiate funding opportunities as they may arise. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Absolutely what Councillor Tickle said. This is a major project that the council will be discussing and going through in stages for many, many years to come. But it's a very important project because it secures our future water security in line with Our Water, Our Future 30-year water plan. So we'll be hearing a lot about Kaiwarrick Off-River Water Storage, and this is a good step along the way. I mentioned before about budgets going up, and I do want to explain there's a good reason why, and it is explained in the report and it was explained to councillors in a workshop. So the pre-tender estimate was around $7 million. It's now coming in at $13.15 million. But as the director said, that's a contingency, about 40% for additional or potential additional geotechnical investigations. And that's quite prudent, and there's a good reason why we're doing that. We would have had to do the geotechnical investigations later in the project anyway, but we've chosen to bring that forward and do it now as part of the design services, so we don't then get surprises. You design it and then you look under the ground, you get a fright, you've got to go back and redesign it. So it's appropriate that the budget has increased here. And what I was really pleased to see when the team presented at the council workshop is they're talking to other council areas, other LGAs around the country and around the state, who have done similar projects recently to learn from them. And I think that's a very clever and prudent way to do it. We're building something that is, you build once in a generation. I don't think, as far as I know, Director, you can correct me, I don't know if there's anybody in council who has built too many of these, maybe one in their career. And so it is prudent that we learn from other councils. And from that learning that we've decided to pull forward that geotech investigation.
Thank you. Anything else? Councillor Beasley.
Further to what Councillor Miller has just said, I'm presuming that significant geotechnical investigations have already taken place, and therefore at some stage there's the likelihood that they may not need to be undertaken. Does the contingency allowance of 40% come off the whole budget? So if there were no need for further potential, and I'm placing this into a question, of course, aren't I, to the director through the acting general manager?
Through the acting general manager, we've made an allowance there, if we, which is quite a conservative allowance based on the feedback that we've had, and I guess the perception of risk that we've got to control. If we don't end up doing that much work, then there'll be a reduction in the amount that's expended. But that's what the project at the moment is allowing for that level. That's based on a lot of the feedback we had from a previous project undertaken on the South Coast, where they ran into additional costs and additional design work partway through construction for the sake of drilling some more geotechnical holes at this stage. So in effect, you can think of it as an investment now to reduce the risk of cost overruns later.
And just to reiterate what I was asking before, so the 40% would come off the total budget. So if the additional geotechnical investigations needed 20%, say, that would be 20% of the total budget being, $2.6 million, say. So this would substantially change, therefore, the budget for the
design work, not for the whole project. So the next phase of the work is the design, which is just on $13.5 million. Obviously, if we do less geotechnical work, then that total amount expended will be less than that.
Thank you.
Anything else? No? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. Unanimous. And 19.4 is another tender for Kaiwarrick Off-River Water Storage Project Environmental Impact Assessment Services.
Thank you, Mayor. This report seeks to present the results of the tender that we undertook to run concurrently with the detailed design, an environmental assessment or impact assessment process, which will be the foundation of the environmental approval process for the project. It runs in parallel again to the third stream, which is also the biodiversity offsets, which council's previously resolved to appoint a consultant to undertake that work. This is essential for us moving the project towards being construction ready as part of our approval gateway, our approval process for this particular infrastructure.
Thank you. Mover, Councillor Tickle.
Thank you, Mayor. But a deja vu that the previous matter of the council, 1, award the contract, the Kaiwarrick Off-Water Storage Scheme Environmental Impact Assessment to GHD, subject to satisfactory agreement of the contract terms and conditions consistent with the tender specification and submission. Point two, delegate authority to the General Manager to execute the contract documents.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Miller. Councillor Tickle.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, this also is another step along the way. The process required to be shovel ready for this project. It'd be interesting to get the report back because the amount of work that has been done in consideration of the environmental effects of this off-water storage scheme, in fact, the positive outcomes that are coming as a consequence of that, in many ways, it'll be interesting to see how this is reflected in the report from GHD. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Miller.
Just a small point for the minute takers. The first word in point 2 to change the tense. No, Councillor Tickle read it out correctly, a delegate. It's written as delegated. We'll just fix that up. I did point out that the previous 2 were over budget for various reasons, so I need to point out that this one came in under budget. So, swings and roundabouts, which is good. As the Director and Councillor Tickle said, this is an important part of getting this major project shovel ready. So we have everything tied up with a bow and ready to seek external funding for this very important community project.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Beasley.
Question for the AGM to the Director. Before this project got to this stage, I would presume that there was some form of environmental impact assessment done. What's the difference between what would have originally been done to allow its continuance and this particular one?
So the work done to date has been considerable in terms that it was considered as part of our integrated water cycle management plan, which looked at all the different options available and did land upon this project as the preferred option for water security going forward. There was also an options analysis and the concept design for this project, which started to identify those issues associated with constructability and logistics, as well as the environmental impacts associated with that. And that had been determined as well to settle on, ultimately land on this option. This is now to undertake our statutory process associated with approval, which will wrap all of the studies and assessments that we've done up together in terms of the framework for environmental impact assessment, and provide that evidence or the document for us to progress with the approval, and ultimately leading to making it shovel ready.
Anything else? Councillor Irving.
Through the acting GM to the director, I'd just like to know what those reports that are being done, will we have access to those?
They'll become part of the body of evidence and the information that's used in the assessment, and all of that information will be publicly available as part of the process when it goes through.
Nothing more? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. Carried. Unanimous. Item 5 is the July 2026 flood recovery transport update. Director.
Thank you, Mayor. This report provides an update to Council for July of this year on our transport flood recovery program following our major flood event back in May last year.
Mover, please. Councillor Miller.
Now I'm madly scrolling, Mayor. I move that the flood recovery program update for July 2026 be noted.
Yes, seconder. Councillor Graham. Councillor Miller.
Sorry, Mayor, my chair makes an embarrassing noise every time I sit down. So I must stay seated like Councillor Beasley, it might be safer. Do I have a question, please, for the Director through the Acting General Manager? Turn your attention to the map on page 125, where it looks like the whole of the Mid-Coast Council area has a nasty case of measles. There's a red dot, which purports to show all completed EW and IRW projects. Director, that's a lot of dots. I know we've been really, really busy, but this is the first time I've sort of seen it visually represented like that. That's a lot of projects.
It is, and it represents, the majority of sort of $40 million worth of expenditure, as indicated in the tables there. It's not just confined to the areas that were directly impacted by the mainstream flooding event. It's all of the damage that occurred across the network over that time period that we're able to demonstrate compliance or eligibility under the Natural Disaster Recovery Framework. So it does cover an extensive area.
I couldn't help but notice a couple of small dots in Dungog, and I'm very happy to help Dungog, but could you explain those dots?
No, I dare say that they're sites where the latitude and longitude is slightly out by enough to push them into the adjoining map, and I dare say that they should be in there because we wouldn't have done work in their area.
I mean, we're happy to help. It's probably due to sea level rise or something. So we're happy to help Dungog. No, I commend you on the amount of work, and we've been consistent in, all councillors have been consistent in commending you and your department on just the sheer quantum of work that's needed to happen to help our community from landslips and bridges and roads. But this measles map of all the work that's been completed, we should certainly make that, put that on a website or make that more publicly available than just in the agenda, because that is an impressive body of work. Congratulations.
It is indeed. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Through the GM to the Director of Infrastructure and Engineering, the Bight Bridge, a lot of people are always interested in what's going on with the Bight Bridge, both on the Wingham side and the Bight side. So what's been done up to date, and what's the next step we need the state to complete before we can continue?
At this stage, we've just clicked over the 80% design development phase. So that means that we've got about 4/5 of the detail together to be able to go out to a construction tender, or be able to get to a point where we can progress the final approvals associated with that. That's an exciting position to be in, because what it does mean is that by the end of this year and certainly early next year, we should be able to run a construction tender. We're looking at having a contractor on site at some point in time early next year, which means 12 to 18 months from then, you would be expecting the replacement bridge to be in place. Now, there is a complication that has arisen in the last few weeks around this process because of the value and the magnitude of the investment under the disaster recovery arrangements. The Commonwealth has an independent external technical review process to undertake, and we're not sure exactly how long that will take, but it can only happen once all of the design details and all of the application is formalised and submitted. And we are hoping that we can short that down as much as we can, potentially streamline and do some of that work concurrently as we finish the design, so that we're not purely delayed as a result, because we won't be able to go to tender until we receive approval from that independent technical review panel.
Okay, so there are a few moving parts that might impact the completion date, but just based on what you were saying, I'm doing the math in my head. So we're in 26, early 27, 18 months gets us to 28, 18 months, so probably third or fourth quarter of 28.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Miller?
Follow-up question, if I could, to the director, the independent technical design panel. Do they give some sort of indication of, we expect to complete in 6 weeks or 6 months, or is there anything that they give a timeline that we could lean on?
Not at this stage, and we don't have any experience going through this process, and I don't know that our colleagues in the state through the Reconstruction Authority have experience in that, because from their perspective, this particular event was the first event they inherited, determining all of the applications for funding and the approvals within the one body. And this is certainly probably the most significant item of damage that was experienced in the events that they've got carriage of at the moment. So I think this is a first for them and for us.
Okay, thank you.
Anything more? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. It's everybody. And the next item is 19.6, Monthly Capital Works Project Status Report for Infrastructure and Engineering Services. Director.
Thank you, Mayor. This report provides the status of our major infrastructure and engineering projects and highlights the issues that we have associated with schedule, costs, or those things that are affecting delivery.
Yeah, move it, please. Councillor Wilson.
I move that the monthly project status report be received and gateway reports endorsed.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Irving. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Wilson?
Just quickly, so whoever's left online, if you pull up this report, you can see the actual works and when they're going to be completed in your local area. I keep on looking at Isabella Street and Primrose Street roundabout and Wigham. We can see that's due for completion in October 2026. And we also received a note from the Wigham Business Chamber thanking us for our efforts and investment.
Thank you. Anything else? No. Councillor Beasley.
Question to the director through the AGM, please. It's noted that Boomerang Drive, Bluey's Beach, is going to receive some road rehabilitation. Director, is that the road in front of Ingenia, or is it elsewhere on Boomerang Drive?
It is actually the road in front of the Genia. It's been subject to a previous resolution of the council where the council endorsed us to enter into a three-way agreement with both the developers to combine all of our works, i.e. their frontage works as part of their condition, as part of their approvals, as well as our general road rehabilitation into one project. As of earlier this week, the developer on the southern side of the road now has their public works engineering permit approval, and we anticipate that that agreement will shortly be executed, and then the contractor that's on site will be appointed to undertake all of the work on behalf of all three parties. So we are very close to seeing the commencement of rehabilitation of the works on those roads, and hopefully that means completion in a short time frame as well.
Nothing else. Put the motion. All in favour? Everybody. Carried. 19.7 is Water and Systems Monthly Performance Report. Director.
Thank you, Mayor. This report provides key information on the performance of our water and wastewater services, both in terms of quality and in performance as well.
Mover. Councillor Irving, thank you.
I move that the Water and Systems Monthly Performance Report for June 2026 be received and the performance against the guidelines and licence conditions be noted.
Yeah, seconder, Councillor Tickle. Councillor Irving? No. Councillor Tickle? No. Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. Two questions to the Director through the Acting General Manager. It's on page 24 of the attachments. It talks about a couple of observed water issues. And one is people saw some cloudy or milky or bubbly water as it was described. Director, could you just explain what's going on there, but also more broadly, what causes that to happen and what should people do if they see that come out of their tap?
Yeah, people do get alarmed when they see that. What is the predominant cause of that is a disruption within our network somewhere, and that's allowed air to be entrained within the mains, and that air gets effectively dissolved into the water, turning it into a cloudy, milky appearance. And people will be able to recognise this because if they trapped a glass of the water and left it standing on the bench or somewhere for a little while, the air would come out of the solution, it will go clear. So there is nothing to be concerned about from that perspective. And often what it means is that as much as we try to get the air out of the system after we've reconnected it and recommissioned it, we can't always get all of the air out of the system. So people can run their taps for a little while. They might hear a bit of knocking and pulsing as the air is expelled from the system, but certainly it should go clear after any periods of time. But what they can do is always call us because our response will work 24 hours a day, every day of the year. And our operators and crew will be more than happy to assist people in understanding what's going on there.
Oh, that's good. I think that helps to address some community questions. The second part was on the same page, talked about some skin reactions and acidic water, and it said that we undertook investigations. Could you help us what was
that's
happening?
more a general comment in relation to when we do get concerns raised about that, we'll immediately invoke an investigation process. Our operators will attend, we'll collect water samples, we'll undertake testing. If we need to, we'll flush the water mains. What that section was specifically referring to is over the period we had 8 variations from our target control limits, and 7 of those were within our North Coorua system, where we take bulk water from Hunter Water. A lot of that was associated with low chlorine because we are on the end of the network, the conditions are cold, and some of the usage is low. So we're seeing water detained within the system for a lot longer, which the chlorine dissipates over time, particularly in the now it is colder, and that's a result of it. We deal with those directly by notifying them back to Hunter Water, and they can do what they can do within their plan to do that because we don't actually treat the water in North Coorua. The one at Tea Gardens was a similar result. The only other exposure or the only other exceedance, which was just a slight exceedance on residual chlorine. Again, our operators are able to respond, adjust the dosings within the network to try and maintain that chlorine, but it comes down to the fact that during winter, particular times, we get lower water use and the water takes longer to get through our system, and we're just trying to adjust for that because we also don't want to have too much in there because there's costs associated with that as well as the people closer on. We end up with higher chlorine levels, so we're trying to balance all that out.
Nothing more? All in favour? Thank you. It's unanimous. 19.8 is minutes of the local transport forum held on the 18th of June 2026.
Thank you, Mayor. This report presents the minutes or the advice that's come from the local transport forum meeting that was held via email on 18 June 2026.
Mover, Councillor Miller.
I move the minutes of the local transport forum meeting held on 18th June 2026 are noted and that the recommendations are adopted.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Turnbull. Do you wish to discuss it?
Yeah, just to point out the 2 projects, and thank you again, Director, for changing the format of the report so those projects are brought up on the front page. I appreciate that. There are 2 projects that the Transport Forum has approved and that we are, I suppose, endorsing or adopting the recommendations here. And they both come from community. So it's great to see that community concerns are being addressed through the Transport Forum. The first is for Taree West School. The Wingham Road at the front of Taree West School is a very busy and sort of complicated intersection. There's streets going off everywhere. So this is about the installation of a new kiss and ride. I used to know it as kiss and drop. They must have changed it. Kiss and ride at the rear of Taree West School on Bayview Crescent. And that came from a request from the school P&C. So it's good to see that will be enacted. The other one came from a request from Greenpoint on Wallace Lake Community Association, and that's to install a no stopping zone on the Lakes Way at Greenpoint. Basically what happens is some people are dumb. So people are travelling quite quickly down the Lakes Way as you can with the speed limit. You've got an opportunity to take a left-hand turn, but people are stopping in the left-hand turn bay to take photos of the osprey nest, which is not a sensible thing to do. And so the community has pointed out that this is a concern, and we'll be putting no stopping signs up in that area. Otherwise, just people, let's not stop in left-hand turning bays. That would be sensible. Thank you.
Anything else? No? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. It's everybody. I'm sure they'll be too busy looking at the osprey red signs though. Corporate services. So we're at 20.1, status of the preparation of financial reports for 2025-26.
This report provides councillors with an update on the activities being undertaken in relation to the preparation of the 2025-2026 financial statements.
Thank you. Mover. Councillor Wilson.
I move that the information be noted.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Tickle. Like to speak to it? Anyone? It's good to note that we're on track. So I will say that. Thank you to the team. Have been for the last few years and always anxious that that might not be the case. So it's good to see that it is all going well. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Everybody? Carried. Cash investments report 20.2. Director? Oh, sorry, acting GM.
Clause 212 of the Local Government General Regulation 2021 requires the responsible accounting officer to provide council with a written report setting out the details of all money that council has invested under section 625 of the Act. This report details the funds invested by Mid Coast Council under section 625 of the Local Government Act 1993.
Thank you. And Councillor Miller has left the room and Councillor Graham is going to move it.
Sure. I move that the information provided in the report be noted.
Helps having that stand there, doesn't it? Seconder, please. Councillor Irving. Do you wish to speak to it? No, anyone? No. Councillor Beasley.
I have a question through the Mayor to the Acting General Manager. So I guess I can't put one to the Director of Corporate Services through the Acting General Manager, can I? Nevertheless, my question is it possible for us to see how the investments are related to the reserved funds that they come from, so that they are delineated? We see how much, say, water reserve or sewer reserve is used in each of these particular investments.
I'll take that on notice, Councillor Beasley, and I'll discuss it with the responsible accounting officer.
Thank you.
Councillor Beasley, didn't you ask that question as a question on notice some time ago?
I did ask that question on notice, and I received that reply, and I do not recall receiving a reply that gave me an answer to that.
I think that by all means check, but I recall it saying that we don't actually bank them. We don't keep them in those reserves. When they go into the bank, they get amalgamated. So it's two different things about how you account for the money. But I'm sure you'll get an official response, and I think that was the response you got last time. Councillor Tickle.
Thank you, Mayor. In relation to that, could Councillor Beasley elaborate why he believes that additional information would be of value?
Of course I will, Councillor Tickle, mainly because of the difference in the interest rates that come back from these investments. And while to me they don't look all that large for my small amount of money, when it becomes tens of millions of dollars at times, the interest that accrues is going to be substantially different. So we'd be hoping for the best result for the reserves that require the most money, which was the reason for my question.
Anything else? Councillor Tickle, could you turn your mic off? It's not causing problems. I'm going to put the motion. All in favour? Noting that Councillor Mackenzie has left the room, everybody else is voting for. Carried. 20.3 is the 6-monthly property review report.
This report provides an update on the commercial property reserve and a summary of lease and or licensing property dealings undertaken during the reporting period, including lease extensions or rent reductions approved by the General Manager under delegated authority.
Thank you. Mover, Councillor Miller.
I move the council note the 6-monthly property report for the period 1 January 2026 to 30 June 2026.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Turnbull. Any debate?
Yes, noting that the total income invoiced during that 6 months is just under $1.5 million, as it says in the report there. And there are a couple of vacancies that would push that up. But that's $1.5 million of income into council that didn't need to come from ratepayers, which is the point of the commercial property portfolio. And I'm very glad to be on the Asset Advisory Committee along with the Mayor, Councillor Howard and Councillor Graham, who are doing excellent work on maximising the return from these properties that council owns. Some of them might be vacant land, some of them might be properties like the Woolworths building in Tuncurry, or where the Rural Fire Service used to be in Tuncurry, and there's going to be some new people moving into that building in South Street. But it's great, balancing community need from community organisations needing premises with commercial return, with a real view on taking the pressure off rates by generating income from elsewhere. It's a really important project.
It is, and it's small returns at the moment, but this project has the opportunity to bring in substantial money in future. It's just like with all things property, it's very slow. So it's great. I need to put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. That's everybody. Moving to 20.4, which is reporting on council expenses for July 25 to June 26.
In accordance with the Council Expenses and Facilities Policy, a report on the provision of expenses and facilities to councillors is required to be publicly tabled at a council meeting and then published in full on council's website. This report includes expenditure summarised by individual councillors and the total for all councillors from 1 July 2025 to 30 June 2026.
Thank you. And a mover, please. Councillor Turnbull.
I move that the content of the report and attachment be noted.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Wilson. Any discussion? No. Put the motion. All in favour? It's everybody. Carried. $20.5 is the LG New South Wales Annual Conference attendance and motions.
The purpose of this report is to determine councillor attendance, voting delegates, and to call for motions to be put for consideration at the Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference in Wollongong from the 22nd to the 24th of November 2026.
Thank you. And we councillors had a bit of a chat out of session, so we've got some names where people put their hands up, and if we can bring that up on screen, Councillor Miller's going to move it.
Thank you. I move that the following councillors be approved to attend the Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference 2026. Councillor Ponton, Councillor Howard, Councillor Irving, Councillor Tickle, Councillor Turnbull, Councillor Wilson. And the following councillors be approved as voting delegates at the conference: Councillor Ponton, Councillor Tickle, Councillor Howard, Councillor Wilson, along with Councillors Irving and Turnbull as alternates. And the motions for the LG New South Wales Annual Conference 2026 be forwarded to the General Manager by no later than Friday, 28th of August 2026 for consideration at the 30 September 2026 Council meeting.
Okay. So everybody's still happy with that? Yep. You're going to move it, Councillor Turnbull? Yep. Oh, sorry. It was already moved, so we need a seconder, which is Councillor Turnbull. Thank you very much. Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. I do just want to point out if any other councillors want to be included on that list, this is the opportunity. I just want to make sure that we are giving everybody the opportunity, but I think we did so in the workshop later, or the conversation we had earlier this afternoon, and that we are able to have, I think it's 3 voting delegates plus the Mayor. But what sometimes happens is that somebody is unwell that day, so it's good that we've learned and we're moving alternates now, so they will be at the conference and able to do so. The other thing is that the motions for the conference, we should point out that's I think that's asking councillors to bring motions, not members of the public necessarily bring motions. But I suppose if any members of the public want to suggest something to councillors, they could. To bring something forward at the conference, it needs to be endorsed by a meeting of council, hence that deadline.
Indeed. And they have asked, because of the huge profusion of motions that get put forward, that each council exercise some restraints and puts forward a maximum of 3, if possible. It's not the law, it's just a request. That is good. So I'm going to put the motion. All in favour? Is everybody? It's carried. 20.6 is grants, donations and sponsorships policy.
The purpose of this report is to present the draft grants, donations and sponsorship policy to Council for adoption, following review by the Policy Working Group on the 10th of June 2026.
Thank you. Mover. Councillor Turnbull, sorry.
I move that the draft grants, donations and sponsorship policy provided in attachment 1 be adopted.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Wilson. Any discussion? No. No? Yes?
It's important to point out a slight change that has been adopted here is that educational institutions can no longer apply for these grants, donations and sponsorship. That includes PNCs and homeschools and private schools and everything. It's just clearing up an issue that we had at a previous meeting, which is why we asked for it to go back to have another look at the policy, that it's difficult to be equal in funding schools. Do you fund one school? Do you fund all of the schools? And there are community groups. So it's about what Councillor Tickle was saying earlier. There are some organisations that have different funding pathways, and it is in line with a lot of state government funding and other funding to say that educational institutions are out of this process.
Not because they're educational, but because they're government, and government departments have their own funds.
Just to point out that it does go to private schools, Catholic schools, PNCs, homeschools and others as well.
All right. Put the motion. All in favour? That is carried. It's excellent. 20.7 is matters before the court.
This report both lists and provides an update on matters that are currently before all courts.
All courts?
Yes.
That's good. Move it, please. Councillor Tickle.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the report be noted.
And a seconder, Councillor Turnbull. Any questions, debate, comments? No, put the motion. All in favour? Thank you very much. It's carried. Gets us to the end of the reports, but there's an opportunity for people to raise urgent business. Does anyone have any urgent business? Councillor Miller.
The extraordinary medal tally of the Australians in the Commonwealth game is to be commended, and Aussie, Aussie, Aussie is all I have to say.
Indeed. All right, thank you. That gets us to the end. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, ladies, taking the minutes. The meeting is closed at, what is that? It's about almost 5:20. Thank you, everybody.